The chrome pipes roared like thunder as 12 Harleys circled the parking lot. Marcus Jackson stood alone, hands at his sides, breathing steady, while racial slurs cut through the humid air. The bikers laughed, thinking they'd found easy prey. They didn't know about the ghost. They didn't know what those calm eyes had seen, what those steady hands could do. In 60 seconds, everything Ray Mercer thought he knew about power was about to change forever. The Riverdale Community Center had seen better days. Paint peeled from the wooden siding like sunburned skin, and the basketball court's chain net hung by a single rusted link. But to Marcus Jackson, it was sacred ground. This was where his father had taught him to tie his shoes, where he'd learned to read, where 3 years ago his mother had held him as they buried his father's memory in tears and silence. Now at 16, Marcus volunteered here every Tuesday and Thursday, tutoring kids who reminded him of himself, hungry for something more than what the streets offered. It was 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in late September when the sound of engines first shattered the afternoon quiet. Marcus was helping 8-year-old Jamal with multiplication tables when the roar began low and distant at first, then growing like an approaching storm. 12 motorcycles. Maybe more. The kid's head snapped toward the windows. "Marcus!" Jamal's voice was small. "Who's that?" Through the smudged glass, Marcus watched them circle the parking lot like sharks sensing blood. Chrome and leather. Confederate flag patches. Exhaust pipes bellowing. The lead rider, a thick-shouldered man with a gray beard braided to his chest, raised his fist, and the formation tightened. Mrs. Chen, the center's director, appeared in the doorway, her weathered face tight with concern. "Marcus, get the children inside, now." But Marcus's training kicked in before conscious thought. His father's voice, clear as mountain water: "Assess, breathe, decide." "Mrs. Chen, take them to the back room. Lock the door." His voice was calm, controlled. "I'll handle this." "Marcus, no." "Please." He met her eyes. "Trust me." The bikes cut their engines in unison, and the sudden silence felt heavier than the noise. 12 men dismounted, boots crunching on gravel. The leader, the graybeard, walked with the swagger of someone who'd never been told no. Marcus stepped outside. The sun was hot on his shoulders, but his hands were cool, steady. He'd learned that from his father, too. The body follows the breath. Control the breath, control everything. "Well, well." The leader's voice was gravel and cheap whiskey. "Look what we got here, boys. The welcome committee." Laughter rippled through the group. Marcus counted them quickly. 12 total ages, ranging from mid-20s to late 50s. The younger ones looked eager, hungry for entertainment. The older ones looked tired, like men who'd been angry so long they'd forgotten why. "Can I help you gentlemen with something?" Marcus kept his voice level, respectful. Not submissive, respectful. There was a difference, and he'd learned it young. The graybeard stepped closer. Up close, Marcus could read the patches on his vest. Iron Knights MC. Ray Mercer, President. A skull with a rebel flag bandana. "Gentlemen?" Ray Mercer smiled, showing yellowed teeth. "You hear that, boys? We're gentlemen now." He turned back to Marcus. "How old are you, son?" 16, sir." "Sir?" Ray laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Where'd you learn your manners, this shithole?" He gestured at the community center. Marcus didn't flinch. "My father taught me, and this isn't a shithole. It's a community center. We run after-school programs, job training, GED classes. Nobody asked for your resume, boy." The word landed like a slap. "You know what this place used to be?" Marcus knew. Everyone in Riverdale knew. Before it was a community center, before the city donated it in 2018, it had been the Iron Knights clubhouse. The city had seized it after a federal drug investigation. Ray Mercer had done 18 months in county lockup. "I know its history," Marcus said carefully. "It's history." Ray stepped so close Marcus could smell the beer on his breath. "This is our place. Built it with our own hands, our sweat, our blood. And the city just gave it away to make themselves feel good about. He gestured vaguely at Marcus. All this diversity bullshit. The center serves everyone, Marcus said quietly. Any race, any background. We don't turn anyone away. A younger biker, maybe 25 with a neck tattoo of barbed wire, sneered. Yeah. Then why's it only... He used a slur Marcus had heard 1,000 times but never got used to. Coming through the doors. Because. Marcus met his eyes. We go where we're needed, where we're welcome. If you'd like to use the facilities, you're welcome to apply. Mrs. Chen inside would be happy to... Ray's hand shot out, not quite touching Marcus, but close enough to make the threat clear. You got a smart mouth, boy. Someone needs to teach you respect. I have respect. Marcus's heart hammered, but his voice stayed level. I'm showing it right now by talking instead of calling the police. Police! Ray laughed, and his crew joined in. You think the cops give a shit about what happens in this neighborhood? You think anybody cares? The circle was tightening. Marcus could feel it, the shift in energy when men decide to stop talking and start acting. He'd felt it before in the 3 fights he'd been forced into at school and the confrontation at the gas station last summer. His father had trained him for this. Son, the fight starts before the first punch. It starts with posture, with breath, with knowing when to stand and when to move. I think you should leave, Marcus said, before this becomes something nobody wants. Something nobody wants. Ray's smile vanished. Let me tell you what I want. I want my clubhouse back. I want this neighborhood to remember whose town this really is. And I want little boys playing dress-up as men to learn their damn place. He shoved Marcus. Not hard enough to knock him down, but hard enough to make a point. Marcus absorbed it, shifted his weight, stayed balanced, didn't raise his hands, didn't retreat. Respond to the attack, not the emotion behind it. That all you got? Marcus asked quietly. Ray's face darkened. What did you say? I said... Marcus kept his voice steady clear. If you're trying to scare me, you'll need to try harder. If you're trying to prove something to your friends, I suggest you think about what you're really proving. And if you're actually here to hurt a 16-year-old kid in front of a community center full of children, then you're not the man you think you are. The silence that followed was electric. One of the older bikers, a lean man with sun-damaged skin and a scar through his eyebrow, muttered, Ray, maybe we should... Shut up, Tommy. Ray didn't take his eyes off Marcus. You know what I like, you kid. You got balls. Stupid, oversized balls that are gonna get you hurt, but balls nonetheless. He turned to his crew. What do you say, boys? Should we teach young Marcus here a lesson about respect? The circle tightened further. 12-1. Marcus's mind raced through calculations, exits, weapons, vulnerabilities. The nearest door was 20 feet away. Mrs. Chen would have called 911 by now. Police response time in this neighborhood 12 to 15 minutes on average. Too long. But then movement from the community center. The door opened and Mrs. Chen stepped out. She was 68 years old, barely 5 feet tall, and she walked with the authority of someone who'd survived the Cultural Revolution and wasn't about to be intimidated by small-town bullies. Gentlemen. Her accent was thick, but her English was precise. You are on private property. You have been asked to leave. If you do not leave in the next 60 seconds, I will have you arrested for trespassing and harassment of a minor. Ray didn't even look at her. Lady, this doesn't concern you. This boy is under my care. That makes it very much my concern. She held up her phone. Police are already on their way. I am recording everything. So you have a choice: leave now, or explain to a judge why 12 grown men felt threatened by one teenage boy. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Ray smiled, slow and mean. You know what? We'll leave. For now. He turned back to Marcus. But you and me, we're not done. Not by a long shot. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper only Marcus could hear. You think you're tough? You think standing here playing hero makes you a man. Next time we meet, there won't be cameras. Won't be cops coming. Just you and me, and we'll see how brave you really are. He stepped back, raised his voice. Let's roll out, boys. This place smells like... Another slur. Anyway. They mounted their bikes. Engines roared to life. Ray Mercer looked back one last time, pointed 2 fingers at his own eyes, then at Marcus. I'm watching you. Then they were gone, leaving only exhaust fumes and the echo of engines. Marcus stood frozen for 3 full seconds after they disappeared. Then his knees went weak, and he had to lock them to stay upright. Mrs. Chen was beside him instantly. Marcus, are you hurt? No, ma'am. His voice sounded strange in his own ears, distant, hollow. I'm fine. That was incredibly brave and incredibly foolish. Yes, ma'am. He couldn't disagree. Come inside. The children are frightened. Marcus followed her in, but his mind was still outside, still analyzing. Ray Mercer hadn't just been angry. He'd been testing, measuring. That final whisper next time wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Inside, the kids crowded around him. Jamal grabbed his hand. Marcus, were you scared? Marcus knelt down, looked the boy in his eyes. Yes, he said honestly. I was scared. Being scared doesn't make you weak, Jamal. It makes you smart. But you can't let fear control you. You breathe through it. You think through it. And you do what needs to be done. Like a superhero. Marcus smiled, but it felt tired. Nobody. Like a person. Just a person trying to do the right thing. That night, Marcus sat at the kitchen table in the small house he shared with his mother, staring at his phone. He'd Googled Ray Mercer. 3 arrests, assault, drug possession, parole violation. Leader of the Iron Knights for 12 years. Known for intimidation tactics and territorial disputes with rival clubs. Not someone to take lightly. His mother, Angela, set a plate of food in front of him, baked chicken collard greens, mac and cheese. Comfort food. She'd been making it every Tuesday since his father died. You gonna tell me what happened today? She sat across from him, her nurse's scrubs still on from her shift at County General. How'd you know something happened? Baby, I'm your mama. I always know. She waited patient as stone. Marcus told her everything. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. You did the right thing, she finally said. Your father would have been proud. Dad would have known what to do next. Michael always knew what to do. Her voice carried weight, 3 years of grief compressed into 5 words. But he also knew when to ask for help. That man never fought a battle alone if he didn't have to. I don't even know what the battle is yet, Mom. Maybe Ray was just blowing off steam. Angela's look said she knew better. Men like that don't blow off steam, baby. They escalate. They need to prove something always. She reached across the table, took his hand. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you won't try to be your father. I'm not trying to... Yes, you are. Her eyes were fierce, loving. Every day I see it. The way you walk, the way you breathe, that look in your eyes when you're thinking. You're his son, Marcus. His blood, his training. But you're also 16 years old, and these men are dangerous. I know, Mom. Do you... She squeezed his hand. Because your father was military, trained for combat. You're a high school junior who volunteers at a community center. There's a difference. Marcus wanted to argue, but she was right. His father, Michael Washington, had been Army Special Forces multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, decorated for valor, recipient of 2 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star. The kind of man who could disarm someone with a look, who moved through the world with quiet, absolute confidence. The kind of man who died 3 years ago from an IED blast in Kandahar, leaving a 16-year-old widow and a 13-year-old son to figure out how to fill the void. Marcus had tried to fill it the only way he knew how, by learning everything his father had taught him. The hand-to-hand combat skills practiced in their basement. The breathing techniques, the situational awareness, the philosophy that violence was a last resort, but when it came, you met it with overwhelming precision. "I'll be careful," he promised. But that night, lying in bed, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept seeing Ray Mercer's face, hearing that whispered promise. Next time. He got up, went to his father's study, the room his mother had left exactly as it was the day he died. Books on military strategy lined the shelves. Photos of his unit. Medals in a shadow box. And in the bottom drawer of the desk, wrapped in cloth, his father's dog tags. Marcus held them, feeling the worn metal, reading the stamped letters by moonlight. Washington, Michael J. SSG, U.S. Army. Blood type O pos. On the backhand engraved, "Protect the innocent, defend the weak, never surrender." Marcus closed his eyes, trying to summon his father's voice, his guidance. "What would you do, Dad?" But the room stayed silent. The next morning at school, word had already spread. Marcus knew it would. Riverdale was a small town, and drama traveled faster than facts. "Yo, Marcus." His best friend Devin caught up with him at his locker. "Is it true the Iron Knights rolled up on you?" "News travels fast." "Man, this is Riverdale. Mrs. Patterson's sister's cousin works at the police station. Everybody knows by now." Devin's expression was half admiration, half concern. "They say you stood up to like 15 of them." 12, and I mostly just stood there." "Still, man, that's crazy. Ray Mercer's no joke. My uncle says he put 3 guys in the hospital over a parking space." "Great, that's comforting." Devin lowered his voice. "You need backup, because like I got your back, we all do." He gestured down the hallway, where a group of their friends, Marcus's basketball teammates, kids from the community center, were watching. Marcus felt something warm in his chest. He'd always been a bit of a loner, focused on grades and helping his mom. But standing here seeing these faces ready to stand with him, it mattered. "I appreciate it, Dev, but I don't want this to become a thing. Maybe Ray was just having a bad day." "Marcus." Devin put a hand on his shoulder. "Ray Mercer doesn't have bad days. He's got bad years, and he just put a target on your back in front of his whole crew. This isn't over." Marcus knew he was right, but what could he do? What should he do? The answer came that Friday in the worst possible way. The Riverdale Community Center held its annual fundraising event every September, a barbecue and talent show that brought the whole neighborhood together. It was the center's biggest fundraiser of the year, critical for keeping the lights on and programs running. Marcus had been helping set up since dawn, hanging decorations, arranging chairs, testing the sound system. By 5 p.m., the parking lot was packed. Families, kids, volunteers. The smell of ribs and chicken on the grill. Music playing. Laughter. Marcus was carrying a box of paper plates when he heard the engines. The music died. Conversation stopped. Everyone turned as 12 motorcycles rolled into the parking lot led by Ray Mercer. They parked in a line blocking the main exit. Ray dismounted slowly, theatrically. He wore a clean vest, his beard freshly braided. He looked like a man preparing for something important. "Evening, folks," his voice carried across the crowd. "Don't mind us. Just heard there was a party, thought we'd join the community festivities." The last word dripped with mockery. Mrs. Chen stepped forward. "Mr. Mercer, you are not welcome here. Please leave." "Not welcome." Ray pressed a hand to his chest in mock hurt. "Now that doesn't seem very inclusive, does it? I thought this center was for everyone. Isn't that what young Marcus here told me?" All eyes turned to Marcus. Ray smiled. "There he is, Marcus Jackson, the bravest 16-year-old in Riverdale." He walked toward him, slow and deliberate. The crowd parted like water. "Mr. Mercer." Marcus kept his voice steady. "This is a family event. There are children here. If you have a problem with me, we can talk about it somewhere else." "Oh, I don't have a problem with you, son. I have a question." Ray stopped 10 feet away. "See, the other night you stood in that parking lot and acted like you owned the place. like you were some kind of guardian or protector. Got me thinking, what makes someone a protector? What gives someone the right to stand between danger and the innocent? Marcus said nothing. I'll tell you what. Ray's voice rose, addressing the whole crowd now. A protector has to be tested, has to prove he's worthy of the responsibility. And I think, he turned back to Marcus, that you need to be tested, Marcus Jackson. Ray. An older woman's voice cut through the tension. Miss Dorothy, 73 years old, church elder. Leave that boy alone. You're embarrassing yourself. Am I? Ray looked at her. Or am I offering an opportunity? See, I propose a challenge. A public test of character strength and leadership. Marcus here thinks he's man enough to protect this community. I say let's find out. That's enough. Mrs. Chen stepped between them. Get out now or I'm calling the police. Call them. They'll get here in 12 minutes, 15. Ray shrugged. Plenty of time for me to make my point. Here's my challenge, Marcus. Next Saturday, the old factory on Mill Road, you and me, we settle who's got the right to stand tall in this town. You want to fight a 16-year-old? Someone in the crowd shouted. Real tough, Ray. Not a fight. Ray smiled. A test. Strength, endurance, leadership. We'll let the community judge. You win, I leave this center alone. I win. He looked around at the crowd. We have a conversation about who really belongs here. Marcus's mind raced. This was a trap. Had to be. But what were his options? Say no, look weak, embolden Ray. Say yes, walk into whatever Ray was planning. Marcus, don't do this. Mrs. Chen's voice was urgent. But Marcus was thinking about the kids watching. About 8-year-old Jamal, who'd asked if he was a superhero. About his father's words, protect the innocent, defend the weak. One condition, Marcus said quietly. Ray raised an eyebrow. You're not really in a position to make conditions. If I do this, you leave everyone here alone, not just the center. Everyone in this neighborhood. No retaliation. No intimidation. You got a problem, it stays between you and me. Ray studied him for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Deal. Next Saturday, 2 p.m. Don't be late. Marcus didn't shake his hand. I'll be there. Ray smiled, nodded to his crew, and they mounted up. As they rode away, the crowd erupted in argument. Some saying Marcus was brave, others saying he was a fool. Everyone concerned about what came next. Marcus stood in the center of it all, watching the bikes disappear, and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. That night, after everyone left after the cleanup was done, Marcus walked home through the quiet streets of Riverdale. The stars were out bright and distant. His phone buzzed constantly, messages from friends, from teachers, from people he barely knew, all asking the same questions. What are you doing? Why did you agree? Are you crazy? Maybe he was. He reached his house and found his mother waiting on the porch, still in her scrubs. She'd heard. Of course she'd heard. Kitchen, was all she said. They sat at the table, the same table where she'd told him about his father's death, where they'd planned the funeral, where they'd learned to be a family of two. Tell me why, Angela said. Marcus tried to find the words. Because if I didn't, he would have kept coming back, would have kept pushing, would have hurt someone eventually. So you sacrifice yourself? I'm not sacrificing anything, Mom. I'm standing up. For what, pride, reputation? For them. Marcus met her eyes. For Mrs. Chen, who gave me a job when nobody else would. For Jamal and all the kids who need to see that bullies don't always win. For Dad. His voice cracked on the last word. He taught me that courage isn't about fighting. It's about protecting what matters. Angela's eyes glistened. Your father also taught you to choose your battles wisely. I know. And I know this seems crazy. But Mom, when Ray was standing there threatening everything, I felt it. I felt Dad's hand on my shoulder, like he was saying, this is your moment. Step up or step aside. They sat in silence. Finally, Angela walked to the back of the house and returned with something wrapped in cloth. She set it on the table. Marcus knew what it was before she unwrapped it. His father's training journal. Leather-bound, worn from years of use. Filled with techniques, strategies, philosophies. "He wanted you to have this when you turned 18, Angela said. "When you were old enough to understand what it meant. But I think—" She pushed it toward him. "I think you need it now." Marcus opened it with reverent hands. His father's handwriting, neat, precise. The first page read, "To my son. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for that. Sorry I won't be there to see you graduate, to meet your wife, to hold my grandchildren. But I'm not sorry for how I lived. I protected people. I stood between evil and innocence. I never surrendered. These pages contain everything I learned. Not just how to fight, but why. Not just how to survive, but how to live with honor. Remember, true strength protects. False strength destroys. Know the difference. Make me proud." Dad, Marcus read late into the night, absorbing his father's wisdom, preparing for whatever came next. And as the clock struck midnight, as he turned page after page of hard-earned knowledge, he made himself a promise. Next Saturday, Ray Mercer would get his test. But Marcus would make sure the real lesson was about courage, not conquest. About protection, not pride. About being the kind of man his father had died, being someone who stood up not because he wanted to, but because someone had to. The countdown had begun. The week that followed felt like walking through fog. Marcus moved through school in a daze of whispered conversations and sideways glances. By Monday morning, the entire town knew about Saturday's challenge. By Monday afternoon, people had started taking sides. "You hear Coach Patterson's running a betting pool," Devin told Marcus at lunch, sliding into the seat across from him. 5-1 odds against you. Marcus picked at his sandwich. "Great. I put $20 on you, though, just so you know." "Dev, you don't have $20. "Borrowed it from my sister." Devin grinned, but it faded when Marcus didn't smile back. "Hey man, talk to me. What's going on in your head?" Marcus looked around the cafeteria. Groups of students huddled together, some glancing his way, others deliberately not looking. At a corner table, 3 white kids in hunting jackets sat with arms crossed, watching him with hard eyes. Ray Mercer's reach extended into the high school, apparently. "I'm thinking," Marcus said quietly, "that I might have bitten off more than I can chew." "You could back out. Nobody would blame you." "Yeah, they would. And they'd be right to." Marcus met his friend's eyes. "If I back out now, Ray wins. He'll own this town. The center, the neighborhood, all of it. Someone has to stand up. Why does it have to be you?" The question hung between them like smoke. Marcus didn't have a good answer. Or maybe he did, but it lived too deep in his chest to put into words, a tangle of grief and duty, of wanting to be worthy of a father he'd never stop missing. Because, he finally said, nobody else will. That afternoon, Marcus went to the Riverdale Public Library instead of the community center. He needed information, strategy, understanding. Mrs. Patterson, the head librarian and Devin's aunt, looked up from her desk as he entered. She was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and reading glasses on a beaded chain, the kind of person who knew everyone's business and everyone's secrets. "Marcus Jackson." She said his name like a diagnosis. "Heard you're going to war on Saturday." "It's not a war, Mrs. Patterson. Just a competition." "Mm-hmm." She came around the desk, studying him with sharp eyes. "You know, Ray Mercer's been training at that boxing gym on Route 9, been there every day since Friday. Heard he's bringing in his cousin from Shreveport, used to fight semi-pro." Marcus's stomach tightened. "I didn't know that." "Course you didn't. That's how men like Ray operate. They set the terms, stack the deck, then call it fair." She paused. "Your daddy knew men like that. Fought them overseas. Fought them here too sometimes." "You knew my dad. Knew of him." Michael Washington was a legend in this town, though he never acted like it. Quiet man, respectful. But you could see it in his eyes, that steel underneath. She looked at Marcus carefully. I see some of that steel in you too. Question is, do you have the wisdom to go with it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. Come with me. She led him through the stacks to a back corner, a small alcove with a table and a single reading lamp. She pulled down 3 books, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, On Combat by Dave Grossman, and surprisingly, Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. Your father checked these out multiple times over the years, she said, always before a deployment. Said they kept him centered, reminded him what he was fighting for and how to fight smart. She tapped the Rilke book. This one especially. Said it taught him that real strength was spiritual, not physical. Marcus picked up the slim volume of poetry, opened it to a random page. His father's handwriting in the margin. Fear is just love in disguise. Fear of losing what matters. His throat tightened. Take them, Mrs. Patterson said. No checkout required. But Marcus... She waited until he met her eyes. Don't try to be your father. He was a soldier. You're a student. He had years of training. You have, what, a few martial arts classes. Some weightlifting. He taught me things. Before he died. Hand-to-hand combat, situational awareness. He taught a 13-year-old boy how to defend himself. That's not the same as being prepared to face 12 angry men, led by someone who spent his whole life fighting. Her voice softened. I'm not saying give up. I'm saying be smart. Your father's greatest strength wasn't his fighting ability. It was his strategic mind. He never walked into a battle without understanding every angle. Marcus nodded, holding the books close. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if you're still standing on Sunday. That evening, Marcus sat in his father's study, surrounded by books and the ghosts of old decisions. His mother was working a double shift at the hospital, so the house was quiet except for the tick of the wall clock and the occasional creak of settling wood. He opened his father's training journal, again searching for something, anything that would give him an edge. The entries were methodical, detailed. Techniques for disarming opponents. Breathing exercises for stress management. Tactical assessments from various operations. But it was a section near the middle that stopped him cold. The heading read, Lessons from Fallujah, When Force Isn't Enough. November 2007. We were pinned down in a residential district, taking fire from insurgents using civilians as shields. My team wanted to go in hard, overwhelming force, shock, and awe. But I saw the faces in those windows. Families. Kids. I remembered something my grandfather told me once. The strongest man in the room is the one who doesn't need to prove it. We waited. We negotiated. We showed patience when every instinct screamed for action. Took 18 hours, but we got those families out without a single civilian casualty. The insurgents surrendered when they realized we'd rather wait than harm innocents. Power is easy. Restraint is hard. But restraint is what separates soldiers from thugs. Marcus read the passage 3 times, feeling something click into place. Ray wanted a fight, wanted violence, domination, proof of superiority. But what if Marcus didn't give him that? What if the test became something else entirely? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, Saturday 2 p.m. Don't chicken out. Ray. Then another a minute later from Devon. Just drove by the factory. They're setting up something big. Looks like they're building a stage or something. This is going to be a spectacle. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he typed back, let them set up whatever they want. I'll be there. But would he? Could he? He closed his eyes, trying to summon his father's presence, his father's voice. What would Michael Washington do in this situation? You'd probably tell me not to go, Marcus whispered to the empty room. You'd say I was being stupid. That I should let the adults handle it. The silence pressed in. But you also taught me to stand up, to protect people, to never surrender. His voice cracked. So which is it, Dad? Which lesson do I follow? The answer came not from the silence, but from his own heart in his father's voice, whether memory or imagination he couldn't tell. You follow both, son. You stand up by being smart. You protect by not becoming what you're fighting against. Marcus opened his eyes. The room looked the same, but something in him had shifted. He picked up his phone and made a call. Hello. Mrs. Chen's voice was cautious. Mrs. Chen, it's Marcus. I need your help. They met at the community center an hour later. Mrs. Chen arrived with Mr. Rodriguez, the center's maintenance man, and Miss Dorothy from the church. Marcus had also called Devin, who showed up with two other friends from the basketball team, Terrell and James. Okay, Miss Dorothy said, settling into a folding chair. Talk to us, baby. What's your plan? Marcus stood in front of them, suddenly aware of how young he was, how little he actually knew. But he thought of his father standing in front of his unit briefing them before a mission. Confidence came from preparation, not bravado. Ray wants a test, Marcus began. Strength, endurance, leadership, that's what he said. He's expecting me to try to match him physically, to fight on his terms. So don't, Mr. Rodriguez said. He was a stocky man in his 50s, a former Marine. Change the battlefield. Exactly. Marcus nodded. But I need to understand what I'm walking into. Devin says they're building something at the factory. Anyone know what? Miss Dorothy raised her hand like she was in church. My nephew works construction. Ray hired him and a crew to build 3 stations, a deadlift platform, some kind of obstacle course, and a stage with a microphone. Said it was for a community event. A public humiliation, more like, Terrell muttered. Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe an opportunity. If there's going to be a crowd, they'll see everything. Ray can't cheat too obviously, can't be too violent without losing face. You think Ray Mercer cares about losing face? James asked skeptically. I think Ray Mercer cares about being respected, about being seen as legitimate. Marcus paced, thinking it through. That's why he set this up as a test instead of just jumping me in an alley. He wants witnesses, wants people to say he proved something. Mrs. Chen leaned forward. So you prove something else. What? That strength isn't just physical. That leadership isn't about domination. Marcus looked at each of them. I need your help preparing. Mr. Rodriguez. Can you teach me about Marine fitness standards? What they actually test for? Can do. Miss Dorothy, you know everyone in this town. Can you spread the word about what's really happening? Make sure people understand this isn't a fight. It's Ray trying to intimidate a kid. Oh honey, I've already been talking. Half the church ladies are planning to show up Saturday just to bear witness. Ray Mercer might think he's running this show, but community memory is long. Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Devin, I need you to find out exactly what Ray's training for. What his weak points might be. On it. My cousin works at that gym. He'll tell me. And Mrs. Chen? Marcus hesitated. I need you to do something that might sound crazy. She raised an eyebrow. Try me. I need you to invite Ray Mercer to the center. Officially. Publicly. The room went silent. Marcus, Mr. Rodriguez said carefully. Explain that logic to me. Marcus took a breath. Ray's whole thing is that the center stole his property, that we're exclusive, that we don't belong here. What if we prove him wrong? What if we show the whole town that we're not afraid of him, that our doors really are open to everyone, even people who've been hostile? That's either brilliant or insane, Terrell said. Both, James added. Miss Dorothy was nodding slowly. It's a chess move. Takes away his moral argument. If he refuses, he looks scared. If he accepts, he has to behave himself. And if he accepts and tears the place apart, Mr. Rodriguez asked, then we'll have documented proof of harassment and destruction of property. Mrs. Chen said, She was smiling now, a sharp, strategic smile. "I like this, Marcus. It's risky, but it's smart." They planned for another hour, working through scenarios, contingencies, possibilities. By the time everyone left, Marcus felt less alone. He had allies, he had a strategy, he had a chance. The next morning, Wednesday, Marcus woke before dawn and went for a run. His father used to say that physical fitness was 30% of combat readiness. The other 70% was mental preparation. Marcus needed both. The streets of Riverdale were quiet at 5:30 a.m., just the sound of his breathing and his shoes on pavement. He ran past the closed storefronts, past the community center, past the Baptist church, where Miss Dorothy probably already inside, praying past the elementary school where he'd learned to read. His town, his home, worth protecting. At the factory on Mill Road, he stopped. From the outside, it looked abandoned, broken windows, rust-stained walls, weeds growing through cracked asphalt. But through the chain-link fence, he could see fresh tire tracks, sawdust signs of activity. They were building his test in there, building his trial. He thought about turning back, about running home, and pretending Saturday would never come. But then he remembered Jamal asking if he was a superhero. Remembered his mother's tears when they'd buried his father. Remembered every lesson, every value, every ounce of purpose that had been poured into him. "I'm not a superhero," he whispered to the empty morning. "I'm just a kid trying to do right." But maybe that was enough. By Thursday, the whole town was buzzing. The Riverdale Register, the local weekly paper, ran a front-page story. Community Center volunteer faces public challenge from former property owner. The article was surprisingly balanced, interviewing both Marcus and Ray, laying out the history. Ray's quote made Marcus's blood run cold. "I'm not looking to hurt the kid, just want to show people that actions have consequences, that respect is earned, not given." Marcus's quote given when a reporter ambushed him outside school. "I'm just trying to protect a place that matters to people. Whatever happens Saturday, I hope we can all move forward peacefully." Devin showed Marcus the article at lunch. "You sound way more mature than you actually are." "Gee, thanks. I mean it as a compliment. You're handling this like an adult." Devin lowered his voice. "My cousin at the gym said Ray's been training hard, real hard, deadlifting 400 pounds, running obstacle courses in under a minute. Marcus, the dude's a machine." Marcus's sandwich suddenly tasted like cardboard. "What else?" "He's also been drinking. A lot. Gets angry during training, punching walls, yelling at people. My cousin thinks he's more psyched out about this than he's letting on." "Why would he be psyched out? He's got every advantage." "Exactly, which means if he loses everything. His reputation, his crew's respect, his identity." Devin leaned in. "You've got him more scared than you think, Marcus. That's why this is so dangerous. Scared men do stupid things." That evening, Mrs. Chen delivered the invitation to Ray Mercer personally. Marcus insisted on going with her despite her protests. The Iron Knights clubhouse, their new one, a warehouse on the industrial side of town, was exactly what Marcus expected. Motorcycles lined up like soldiers, Confederate flags, the smell of motor oil and tobacco. Ray opened the door himself, clearly surprised to see them. "Mrs. Chen, Marcus." He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "This is either brave or suicidal. Haven't decided which." Mrs. Chen handed him an envelope. An invitation to visit the Riverdale Community Center, tour the facilities, see what we do, meet the children whose lives were changing. Ray took the envelope, didn't open it. "Why would I want to do that?" "Because," Marcus said, finding his voice, "you said this is about respect, about understanding who belongs. Come see who we are, see what we've built. Then Saturday, whatever happens, at least you'll know what you're really fighting against." Ray studied them for a long moment. Behind him, other bikers had gathered, watching. "You got balls, kid. I'll give you that." He opened the envelope, scanned the letter. "Tomorrow, 4 p.m. "Fine. I'll come. But don't expect this to change anything." "I don't expect anything," Marcus said. "Except honesty." They turned to leave, but Ray called after them. "Marcus, one more thing." Marcus looked back. Ray's expression was unreadable. "Your old man, Michael Washington. I knew him little bit. He came to the VFW sometimes. Quiet guy, kept to himself, but he had this way about him. Like he'd seen things that changed him." Marcus's heart hammered. "You knew my dad?" "Not well, but I remember something he said once. Some guys were talking tough, wanting to start a bar fight, and your dad just looked at them and said, 'Real warriors choose their battles. Fools fight every one.'" Ray paused. "Been thinking about that quote a lot this week, wondering which one I am." He closed the door before Marcus could respond. Friday afternoon, Ray Mercer showed up at the Riverdale Community Center with 3 of his crew. The parking lot was packed. Mrs. Chen had made sure word got out, and people came to witness. Marcus led the tour himself, his voice steady despite his nerves. He showed them the computer lab where adults learn job skills, the gymnasium where kids played basketball, the tutoring rooms, the walls covered in children's artwork and achievement certificates and photos of smiling faces. Ray walked through it all in silence, his expression unreadable. His crew made snide comments at first, but Ray shut them down with a look. In the main hall, 8-year-old Jamal was practicing his speech for the upcoming talent show. When he saw Marcus, he ran over. Marcus watched this. He proceeded to recite somewhat shakily Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, the version shortened for kids. Marcus knelt down. "That was great, buddy. Keep practicing." "You gonna be here Saturday for the talent show?" Jamal asked. Marcus hesitated, glanced at Ray. "I've got something I need to do Saturday afternoon, but I'll try to make it back in time." "You promise?" "I promise I'll try my hardest." Jamal hugged him, then ran back to Mrs. Chen. Ray watched this exchange with an expression Marcus couldn't decipher. When the tour ended, they stood in the parking lot as the sun set, painting the sky orange and purple. "Well," Mrs. Chen asked, "what do you think?" Ray was quiet for a moment. "I think—" He paused, seeming to wrestle with something. "I think you've built something here. Something good." He looked at Marcus. "But that doesn't change what happened. Doesn't change that this used to be ours. Doesn't change tomorrow." "I know," Marcus said. "But now you know who you're really up against. Not me, not the center. You're up against the idea that things can be different. That a building can change from a place of exclusion to a place of welcome. That people can grow." Ray's jaw tightened. "See you tomorrow, kid. 2 p.m. Don't be late." "I won't." As the bikers rode away, Mrs. Chen put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You did good today, Marcus. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already won something important." "What's that?" "You've shown him who you are. And maybe, just maybe, you've planted a seed of doubt about who he is." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios. At midnight, he gave up, got dressed, and went to his father's study. His mother found him there at 2 a.m., surrounded by open books and pages of notes. "Baby." She sat down next to him on the floor. "You need rest." "I can't sleep. Mom, what if I'm not ready? What if I embarrass myself? What if I let everyone down?" Angela pulled him close the way she had when he was small. "Let me tell you something about your father. The night before his first deployment, I found him just like this, surrounded by manuals, unable to sleep. Terrified he wasn't ready." Dad was scared. Terrified. He was 23 years old, responsible for 8 men's lives, about to go into a war zone. He told me he felt like a fraud, like everyone would see through him and realize he was just a kid pretending to be a soldier. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite the fear. Doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified." She pulled back to look at him. "Marcus, you don't have to do this. You can still walk away." "You know I can't." "I know. You're his son." Her eyes filled with tears. "You're so much like him, it hurts sometimes. That same stubborn nobility, that same refusal to back down when people need protecting." "Did Dad ever tell you about Fallujah, about the ghost?" Angela smiled sadly. "He told me enough. The name came from his ability to move unseen to accomplish missions without ever being detected. But you know what I think? I think the real ghost was fear. His team's fear, the enemy's fear, his own fear. He learned to move through it like it wasn't even there." How? By remembering what he was protecting, by keeping his why bigger than his fear. She touched his face. "Your why is those kids at the center. That community. The belief that someone should stand up. That's bigger than Ray Mercer. Bigger than fear." They sat together in silence, mother and son sharing the weight of a ghost who still guided them both. At 6 a.m., Marcus finally fell asleep on his father's study floor, his mother's jacket covering him like a blanket. He dreamed of Fallujah, though he'd never been there. Dreamed of his father moving through smoke and shadows, protecting people he'd never meet, standing between danger and innocence. In the dream, his father turned and saw him. "Ready, son?" Michael Washington asked. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. His father smiled. "Then you're exactly where you need to be. Fear means you understand the stakes. Doubt means you're thinking. The only people who aren't afraid are fools or liars." He put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You've got this. Not because you're strong enough or tough enough, but because you know why you're standing up. And that why will carry you through. What if I lose? Then you lose. But you'll lose standing up, not sitting down. You'll lose protecting others, not yourself. And that matters. That changes things. That plants seeds." His father's image began to fade. "I'm proud of you, Marcus. Not for what you'll do tomorrow, but for who you are right now." Marcus woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. Saturday morning. The day had arrived. He stood stretched and walked to the window. Outside, Riverdale was waking up, people heading to the grocery store, kids riding bikes. Life continuing like this was just another weekend. But it wasn't. Today something would change. For better or worse, Marcus Jackson would face Ray Mercer, and the town would bear witness. He showered, dressed in simple clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, his father's dog tags under his shirt. In the kitchen, his mother had made breakfast eggs, toast fruit. She didn't speak, just set the plate in front of him. "Thank you," he said. "Come home safe," she replied. "That's all I ask." "I will, I promise." At noon, Devin picked him up. Terrell and James were in the back seat. They drove in silence toward the old factory on Mill Road, and as they got closer, Marcus saw the crowds. Hundreds of people, maybe thousands, lining both sides of the street, filling the factory parking lot, standing on cars for a better view. News vans from Shreveport and Monroe. Police cars maintaining order. This wasn't just a local event anymore. This was a spectacle. "Holy hell," Devin breathed. "The whole state's here." Marcus's hands trembled. "Pull over." "What, Marcus?" "Pull over, please." Devin pulled onto a side street a block from the factory. Marcus got out, walked to a fence, gripped the chain-link metal. "I can't do this," he whispered. "Look at all those people. I'm just a kid. I'm just—" Terrell was suddenly beside him. "Hey, look at me." He waited until Marcus met his eyes. "You know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who showed up, who didn't run, who's about to walk into that crowd and stand for something. That's not just a kid. That's a leader." "I don't feel like a leader." "Leaders never do," James said, joining them. "My dad's a pastor. He told me once that every Sunday morning he's terrified he'll mess up the sermon, but he walks up there anyway. You know why? Why? Because people need to see someone stand up, even when it's scary, especially when it's scary." Devin put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "We're with you, man. Whatever happens in there, you're not alone." Marcus closed his eyes, took a deep breath in, for 4 hold, for 4, out, for 4, just like his father taught him. When he opened them, the fear was still there, but so was something else. Purpose. He turned back to the car. Okay, let's go. They drove the last block and parked. As Marcus stepped out, the crowd noise hit him like a wave. Voices shouts music from someone's speakers. The energy was electric chaotic, balanced on a knife's edge between celebration and violence. A path had been cleared through the crowd leading to the factory entrance. Marcus started walking, his friends flanking him like a protective detail. People called out as he passed. "You got this, Marcus. Show him what you're made of. Don't let us down, boy." And darker voices too. "Ray's gonna destroy you." "Go home, kid." Racial slurs that Marcus forced himself not to react to. At the factory entrance, Ray Mercer was waiting with his crew. He looked different, focused, sober, dangerous. Behind him inside the factory, Marcus could see the 3 stations set up: the deadlift platform, the obstacle course, the stage with microphone. "Marcus Jackson!" Ray's voice carried over the noise. "Glad you showed up. Wasn't sure you would." "I keep my promises," Marcus said. Ray studied him for a moment, something complicated in his expression. Then he nodded. "Let's get this done." They walked inside together, and the crowd surged in behind them, filling the factory floor. Marcus's heart hammered so hard he thought his ribs might crack. This was it. The test was about to begin. The factory floor stretched vast and hollow, years of abandonment echoing in every crack of concrete and broken beam overhead. Someone had strung industrial lights across the rafters, casting harsh shadows that made the space feel like an arena. And that's exactly what it was now, an arena filled with hundreds of spectators, their voices rising and falling like waves against rocky shores. Marcus stood near the entrance, feeling small despite his 6 feet of height. Ray moved toward the center of the space where a man Marcus didn't recognize stood holding a microphone. He was older, maybe 60, with a gray ponytail and a leather vest marked with patches Marcus couldn't quite read from this distance. "Ladies and gentlemen," the man's voice boomed through speakers mounted on stands. "I'm Tommy Vance, Sergeant-at-Arms for the Iron Knights, and I'll be your referee today." His grin was all teeth and no warmth. "We got ourselves a contest here. 3 challenges. Strength, endurance, and leadership. Ray Mercer versus Marcus Jackson. Winner takes respect. Loser. Well, we'll see about that." The crowd roared. Marcus scanned the faces. He saw Mrs. Chen near the front, her expression tight with worry. Miss Dorothy stood with a group of church ladies, hands clasped in prayer. Devin, Terrell, and James had positioned themselves strategically, creating a buffer zone. And there near the back, partially hidden behind a support beam, Marcus saw his mother. She'd come despite his protests. Their eyes met across the distance, and she pressed her hand to her heart. "First challenge." Tommy gestured to the deadlift platform. "Pure strength. We've got a barbell loaded to 315 pounds. Each competitor gets 3 attempts. Whoever lifts the most weight wins the round." Ray was already walking toward the platform, rolling his shoulders, cracking his neck. He'd stripped down to a tank top, revealing arms covered in faded tattoos and scars that told stories Marcus didn't want to know. "Ray goes first," Tommy announced. "Show these folks what Iron Knights are made of." Ray approached the bar with the confidence of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. He bent, gripped, took 3 sharp breaths. Then he lifted. The weight came up smooth and controlled, Ray's face reddening with effort, but his form perfect. He held it at the top for a 3 count, then dropped it with a thunderous crash. The crowd erupted. Ray's crew chanted his name. He turned to Marcus with a smile that was pure challenge. "Your turn, kid. Let's see what you got." Marcus approached the platform, his mind racing. He'd trained with weights in school, could deadlift maybe 225 on a good day. This was 315. 90 pounds more than he'd ever attempted. He heard his father's voice in his head, as clear as if Michael Washington stood beside him. Strength isn't always about winning. Sometimes it's about showing you won't quit. Marcus bent to the bar, gripped it, set his stance. His hands felt too small, the bar too heavy, the moment too big. But he pulled anyway. The weight shifted, came off the ground maybe 6 inches. His legs trembled. His back screamed. He got it to his knees before his grip failed, and the bar crashed down. Laughter rippled through parts of the crowd. Someone shouted, "Is that all you got?" "Failed attempt," Tommy called out. "2 more tries, kid." Marcus stepped back, shook out his hands. Devin pushed through the crowd to his side. "You okay?" "Yeah." Marcus breathed hard. "Just need to adjust." "Marcus, you can't lift that. It's too much." "I know." Marcus looked at his friend. "But I can try. That's what this is about, right? Not giving up." He approached the bar again. This time he thought about technique instead of strength. His father had taught him leverage, how smaller soldiers could move heavier equipment by using physics instead of muscle. He widened his stance slightly, adjusted his grip, kept his back straighter. Pulled. The weight came up. Slower this time, harder, but it came. Past his knees, to his thighs, his entire body shaking with effort. He couldn't hold it long, but he held it long enough, 3 seconds at full extension before he had to drop it. "Good lift," Tommy called, sounding surprised. The crowd's energy shifted. People cheered, even some who'd been jeering moments before. Ray's smile faltered. "1 more attempt each," Tommy announced. "Ray, you're up. Let's add some weight. Make it interesting." They loaded the bar to 365 pounds. Ray approached it like a man-possessed, anger tightening his features. He gripped the bar, took 1 breath, and yanked. The weight exploded upward. Ray held it overhead for a full 5 seconds, roaring like something primal. When he dropped it, the entire factory seemed to shake. "That's how it's done," Ray shouted at the crowd. "That's Iron Knight's strength." His crew went wild. The energy in the factory tilted toward violence, toward dominance. Marcus felt it like pressure in his chest. Tommy loaded the bar back to 315 for Marcus's final attempt. "Let's see if the kid can match his last lift. Personally, I got my doubts." Marcus stepped up. His body ached already, his hands raw. But he thought about Jamal practicing his speech, about his mother working double shifts to keep them afloat, about his father lifting casualties in Fallujah, carrying wounded soldiers through fire. He lifted. This time it felt different. Maybe adrenaline, maybe desperation, maybe something beyond physical, but the weight came up clean. He held it steady longer than before, and when he set it down, it was controlled, deliberate. "Good lift," Tommy announced, and this time there was respect in his voice. "Ray wins on weight, but the kid's got heart. I'll give him that." Ray walked over to Marcus as they moved to the second station. "You surprised me," he said quietly. "Didn't think you'd get it off the ground twice." "I'm full of surprises." "Not enough, though. You're down 1-0. This next one's gonna break you." The obstacle course looked like something from military training, a wall to climb, tires to navigate, a rope to cross, suspended over a pit, monkey bars, and a final sprint. Tommy explained the rules: fastest time wins, but you had to complete every obstacle. Miss one, you're disqualified. "Ray built this course himself," Tommy said. "Been training on it all week. Kid, you ever done anything like this?" "No, sir," Marcus admitted. "Then you're about to learn real quick." Tommy raised his hand. "Ray Mercer, you're up. Clock starts when you cross that line." Ray positioned himself, bouncing on his toes like a boxer. When Tommy dropped his hand, Ray exploded forward. He attacked the course with brutal efficiency. Over the wall in seconds, through the tires, without breaking stride, across the rope, with the confidence of someone who'd done it 100 times. The monkey bars slowed him slightly, his bulk working against him, but he powered through. The final sprint brought him across the finish line in 1 minute 12 seconds. The crowd roared approval. Ray wasn't even breathing hard. He looked at Marcus with something between pity and contempt. "Your turn, kid. Try not to embarrass yourself." Marcus approached the starting line. His legs felt like lead from the deadlifts. His hands were torn. But he'd watched Ray's run carefully, noting how he'd gripped the rope, how he'd distributed his weight on the monkey bars. "You ready?" Tommy asked. Marcus nodded. "Go." Marcus ran. The wall loomed 8 feet of plywood. He jumped, caught the top edge, pulled with everything he had. His arms screamed, but he got over, dropped to the other side, stumbled, but kept moving. The tires were trickier. He caught his foot on the second one, nearly fell, recovered. Lost precious seconds. The rope stretched across a 6-foot pit filled with what looked like mud. Ray had crossed it hand over hand, using pure arm strength. Marcus didn't have that, but he had physics. He grabbed the rope and wrapped his legs around it, using his whole body instead of just his arms. Slower, but it worked. He reached the other side, dropped down. The monkey bars weighted 10 rungs of metal pipe. His hands were slick with sweat and blood. He jumped, caught the first bar, swung to the second. And almost fell. His grip slipped. His body swung wild. The crowd gasped. For one heartbeat, Marcus hung by one hand, his shoulder joint screaming. Then muscle memory kicked in, his father's training, the countless pull-ups in their basement, the discipline of not giving up even when your body begged you to quit. He caught the bar with his other hand, steadied himself, kept going. Slower than Ray, but he kept going. When he dropped from the last bar, his legs nearly buckled. The final sprint stretched ahead 50 yards that felt like 50 miles. He ran anyway, each step an act of pure will. He crossed the finish line and collapsed to his knees. "Time," Tommy called. 1 minute 48 seconds. Marcus stayed on his knees, chest heaving, hands bleeding. He'd lost. Again. Ray had beaten him by 36 seconds, but he'd finished. Devin rushed over with water, helped him to his feet. "That was insane, man. You almost fell and you still finished." "Still lost." Marcus managed between breaths. "Yeah, but look at the crowd." Marcus looked up. The energy had shifted again. People were clapping, not the wild cheering Ray got, but something different. Respect. Recognition. Even some of Ray's crew looked impressed. Ray stood nearby, arms crossed, watching Marcus with an expression that was hard to read. Tommy took the microphone again. 2-0 Ray Mercer. But we got one more challenge, the big one. He pointed to the stage. Leadership. This one's different, folks. This ain't about muscle or speed. This is about who these men really are. Marcus's stomach dropped. What did leadership mean in this context? What had Ray planned? "Here's how it works," Tommy continued. "Each man gives a speech, 3 minutes. Tell us why you deserve respect, why you deserve to lead, why this town should listen to you. Then we let the people decide. Show of hands, majority wins." Ray smiled, and Marcus suddenly understood the trap. Public speaking, in front of hundreds of people who'd watched him fail twice already. Ray could spin his losses as proof that Marcus was weak, unworthy. Could use his charisma and years of commanding his crew to sway the crowd. It was brilliant and brutal. "Ray goes first," Tommy said. "Then the kid. Ray, the stage is yours." Ray climbed onto the stage, took the microphone with the ease of someone comfortable with attention. The crowd quieted, waiting. "Folks of Riverdale." Ray began, his voice smooth, practiced. "Most of you know me, Ray Mercer. Born in this town, raised in this town, planned to die in this town. The Iron Knights. We've been part of this community for 30 years. We've helped people when they needed it. Protected this town. Gave jobs to folks when nobody else would." Murmurs of agreement rippled through parts of the crowd. "Now I ain't perfect. Done time, made mistakes. But I'm honest about who I am. I don't pretend to be something I'm not." He paused. Let that sink in. "This factory, this place we're standing, it used to be ours. We built it. We maintained it. It was home. Then the city decided we weren't good enough anymore. Decided that what we'd built should go to someone else." His voice hardened. I get it. Times change. But respect. Respect is earned. You can't just give someone a building and call them a leader. You can't just show up in a neighborhood and say you belong. He turned, looked directly at Marcus. That kid there, Marcus Jackson. He's what? 16? 17? What's he done to earn the right to stand between me and what's mine? His daddy was a war hero, sure. Michael Washington was a good man. But being a good man's son don't make you a good man. Don't make you a leader. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Marcus felt every eye on him. Today, we've tested strength. We've tested endurance. And I've won both. Not because I'm mean or because I'm trying to hurt anybody, but because strength matters. In the real world, in the hard world, you got to be able to back up your words with action. Ray's voice rose. So I'm asking you, Riverdale, who do you want standing for you? Someone who's proven himself, or a kid playing hero? He dropped the microphone to his side, let the question hang in the air. The applause that followed was loud, enthusiastic, especially from his crew and their supporters. Tommy took the mic back. Marcus Jackson, your turn. 3 minutes. Make 'em count. Marcus climbed onto the stage on shaking legs. His hands left bloody prints on the microphone. The crowd stretched before him, hundreds of faces, some sympathetic, some hostile, most just curious. His mind went blank. 3 minutes. What could he possibly say that would matter, that would change anything? Then he saw his mother's face in the crowd, saw Mrs. Chen, saw Jamal, who must have snuck in somehow, watching with wide eyes. He thought of his father's journal, the passage about Fallujah, about restraint being harder than force. Marcus took a breath and began. Mr. Mercer's right about some things, he said quietly. The crowd leaned in to hear. I am 16. I am just a kid, and I haven't earned respect the way he has through years of being here, through building something. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Was he conceding? But he's wrong about something important. He said respect is earned. I agree. But earned how? Through strength, through domination, through proving you can lift more weight or run faster. Marcus looked at Ray. Or through what you do with that strength once you have it. He turned back to the crowd. My father, Michael Washington, he was strong. Really strong. Special forces strong. Could have hurt a lot of people if he wanted to. But you know what his team called him, the Ghost. Not because he was scary, but because he could move through conflict without creating more conflict. Could protect people without destroying them. His voice grew steadier. That's the kind of strength I'm trying to learn. Not the strength to dominate. The strength to protect. Not the strength to take what you want. The strength to give what people need. He gestured toward Ray. Today Mr. Mercer proved he's stronger than me. Faster than me. He won both challenges fair and square. But leadership isn't about being the strongest person in the room. It's about making everyone in the room stronger. Marcus thought about the kids at the center, about Mrs. Chen working tirelessly, about his mother holding their family together. The Riverdale Community Center. It's not perfect. We're not perfect. But every day we try to lift people up. Kids who need help with homework, adults who need job training, people who just need a place to belong. That's what leadership looks like to me. Not standing over people, standing with them. His 3 minutes were almost up. He could feel it. So I'm not asking you to choose me over Mr. Mercer. I'm asking you to choose what kind of strength you want in your community. The strength that takes, or the strength that gives. The strength that dominates, or the strength that protects. He paused. Either way, I'm going to keep showing up at that center. Keep tutoring kids. Keep trying to help. Because that's what my father taught me. That's what I believe in. Win or lose today, that won't change. He set the microphone down. The silence that followed felt eternal. Then someone started clapping. Miss Dorothy. Then Mrs. Chen. Then more people, slowly at first, then building. Not everyone. Ray's crew stood silent, arms crossed. But enough people that it mattered. Tommy took the stage. All right, folks, time to vote. Show of hands who thinks Ray Mercer showed better leadership today. Hands went up. Marcus counted quickly, maybe 40% of the crowd. Strong showing, but not majority. And who thinks Marcus Jackson showed better leadership? More hands rose. Maybe 45%. Close. Too close to call definitively. Tommy frowned. We got ourselves a split decision. But rules are rules, majority wins, and looks like the kid edged you out, Ray. Ray's face darkened. That's bullshit. Look at me. I dominated both physical challenges. This kid couldn't even... You won the strength and endurance, Tommy said carefully. Nobody's disputing that, but leadership folks voted for what they believe in. This is a setup. Ray's voice rose. You all wanted this outcome, wanted to make me look weak in front of my own town. Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Mercer, you're not weak. You proved that today. You won 2 out of 3 fair and square. Nobody's taking that from you. Shut up. Ray spun on him. Don't you dare try to console me like some prize puppy. You think because you gave a pretty speech, because you got people to feel sorry for you, that makes you better than me? The crowd grew tense. Ray's crew moved closer to the stage. I don't think I'm better than you, Marcus said quietly. I never did. You stood in that parking lot and challenged me. You disrespected everything I built. No, I protected something people needed. That's different. Ray's hands clenched into fists. You think you're so smart, so noble, like your daddy. Well, let me tell you something about heroes, kid. They die. They go overseas chasing glory, and they die, and their families get left behind with nothing but flags and medals. Marcus's jaw tightened. Don't talk about my father. Why not? It's true, isn't it? Michael Washington, big war hero, left you and your mama alone? What kind of man does that? What kind of father? Something broke inside Marcus, not into anger, but into perfect clarity. He saw what Ray was doing, trying to provoke him, trying to turn this into a fight, so Ray could claim justification for violence. Marcus took a step back instead of forward. My father, he said calmly, died protecting people he'd never met. Died standing between innocence and evil. And if you think that makes him weak, then you don't understand strength at all. Ray snapped. He lunged forward, swinging wild. The crowd screamed. Marcus saw it coming, his father's training clicking into place like clockwork. He shifted left, Ray's fist sailing past his head. Come on, Ray shouted, swinging again. Fight me. Show everyone what you really are. Marcus ducked, sidestepped, kept his hands at his sides. I'm not going to fight you, Mr. Mercer. Coward. Another swing. Marcus slipped at the movement, economical, precise. Ray was strong, but sloppy anger making him wild. Each missed punch made him angrier, more reckless. The crowd pressed back, giving them space. Tommy shouted something about breaking it up, but nobody moved. Everyone watched, transfixed. Ray threw a combination jab crosshook. Marcus flowed around each one, like water, never striking back, never raising his fists. Why won't you fight? Ray's voice cracked. What are you trying to prove? That I don't have to, Marcus said. That strength doesn't have to hurt people. Ray screamed frustration, rage, something deeper and charged. A football tackle, arms wide. Marcus stepped aside at the last second, and Ray's momentum carried him forward. He tripped over his own feet and crashed to the concrete floor in a heap. Silence filled the factory. Ray lay there breathing hard, his hands scraped, his pride shattered. Marcus stood above him, not in victory, but in witness. You okay? Marcus asked, extending his hand. Ray looked at the offered hand like it was a snake. Get away from me. Mr. Mercer? I said get away. Ray pushed himself up, refusing help. Blood dripped from his scraped palms. His crew started toward the stage, but he waved them off. Don't. Just don't. He stood swaying slightly and looked at Marcus with eyes that held something Marcus hadn't expected to see there. Brokenness. You want to know why I really came after you? Ray's voice was quiet now, meant only for Marcus to hear, even though the whole factory listened. Because when I look at this town at what it's become, I don't recognize it anymore. Everything I built, everything I thought mattered, it's gone, replaced. And you. He gestured weakly. You represent everything that replaced it. Youth, hope, change. All the things I'm too old and too angry to be. Marcus didn't know what to say. Ray wiped his mouth, looked at the blood on his hand. You won, kid, not because you're stronger, but because you're better. He turned to his crew. Let's go. Ray, Tommy started. I said let's go. The Iron Knights filed out in silence, engines rumbling to life outside. Ray was the last to leave. At the doorway, he looked back one more time at Marcus, at the crowd at the factory that used to be his. Then he was gone. The silence broke into noise, people talking, arguing, processing what they'd witnessed. Marcus stood on the stage, still not quite believing it was over. Devon rushed up, grabbed his shoulders. Dude, that was incredible. You didn't even hit him, and you won. Mrs. Chen appeared, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, oh Marcus. She pulled him into a hug. Your father would be so proud. Miss Dorothy joined them along with a dozen others. People Marcus knew, people he didn't, all pressing close, touching his arm, his shoulder, offering congratulations or concern or simple presence. But Marcus was looking for one person. He found her near the back, still by the support beam. His mother. Their eyes met across the crowd and she mouthed two words, come home. Marcus nodded. Home. Yes. That's what he wanted now. Not celebration or recognition. Just home. He started pushing through the crowd toward her when a voice stopped him. Marcus Jackson. He turned. A man in his 60s, black, wearing a Veterans of Foreign Wars cap, stood with his hand extended. Sir. Jerome Williams. I served with your father. Second Tour Fallujah. The man's handshake was firm, his eyes clear. Been standing in the back this whole time watching. Just wanted to tell you Michael would have been proud of what you did here today. Marcus's throat tightened. You knew my dad. Knew him, son. He saved my life twice. Once from an IED, once from myself after I came home broken. Jerome smiled. He had this saying, a warrior's greatest victory is the battle he doesn't fight. Took me years to understand what he meant, but I just watched you live it. Other veterans were gathering now, nodding, introducing themselves. Men his father had served with, men who remembered Michael Washington's quiet strength, his tactical brilliance, his unwavering code. Your old man, one of them said. He could have killed Ray Mercer in about 3 seconds if he'd wanted to, but he would have done exactly what you did, shown restraint. Shown that real power is knowing when not to use it. They shared stories then there in that factory, surrounded by the remnants of conflict. Stories of his father that Marcus had never heard, of his humor, his leadership, the time he'd talked down an enemy combatant instead of shooting him, saving both their lives, the time he'd carried 3 wounded men across a mile of hostile territory. Marcus listened, drinking it in like water in a desert. This was his father, not the abstract hero, not the ghost, but the man. Flawed, scared, brave human. When the stories ended, Jerome put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. We got a VFW post here in Riverdale. Your dad was supposed to join when he got home. We'd be honored if you'd come by sometime. Not to join, you're too young, but to remember, to know you got family here. I'd like that, Marcus said. Thank you. As the crowd finally began to disperse, as the sun started its descent toward evening, Marcus found his mother waiting by their car. She wrapped him in her arms and held on like she'd never let go. I was so scared, she whispered into his hair. So scared. I know, Mom. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Don't ever be sorry for being your father's son." She pulled back, looked at his face, touched the bruises already forming from the deadlift, the scrapes on his hands. "But Marcus, no more tests. No more proving yourself. Okay, just be 16. Please." He wanted to promise that. Wanted to say he was done being brave, done standing up, done carrying weight too heavy for his shoulders. But he thought about Jamal at the center, about the kids who needed tutoring, about the community that had shown up today, not just to watch, but to witness, to participate in something bigger than any one person's pride. "I'll try," he said instead. "I'll try to be 16, but I also have to be me. And me means showing up for people who need it." Angela Jackson looked at her son, really looked at him, and saw not the boy he'd been, but the man he was becoming. It terrified her and filled her with fierce pride in equal measure. "Just promise me you'll be careful, that you'll remember you don't have to carry everything alone." "I promise." They drove home through the dimming light of early evening, the streets of Riverdale peaceful again, as if the day's drama had been a fever dream. But Marcus knew it wasn't. Something had shifted today. Not just in him, but in the town. In the delicate balance between fear and hope, between old ways and new possibilities. As they pulled into their driveway, Marcus saw a package on their porch. Plain cardboard, no return address. His mother tensed. "Wait here," she said. But Marcus was already out of the car, approaching carefully. He picked up the package, shook it gently. Something inside. He opened it with his mother watching from the car. Inside was a single item, Ray Mercer's Iron Knight's vest patch, the one that said President. And beneath it, a note in rough handwriting. "You earned this more than I did. Maybe I'll earn it back someday. Maybe not. Either way, you keep that center safe. Those kids need someone like you." Ray Marcus stood on his porch, holding the patch, watching the sunset over Riverdale, and understood that today hadn't been an ending. It had been a beginning. The work wasn't finished. The community still needed healing. Ray still needed redemption. And Marcus still needed to figure out how to be both 16 and a leader, both a student and a protector. But for now, for this moment, he let himself feel what he'd been too scared to feel all day. Relief. He'd stood up. He'd faced the test. And he'd proven to Ray, to the town, to himself, that his father's lessons lived on. That courage wasn't about fighting. It was about choosing not to fight when fighting would be easier. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, Marcus Jackson went inside, had dinner with his mother, and for the first time in 3 years, slept without dreaming of ghosts. Sunday morning arrived wrapped in the kind of stillness that follows storms. Marcus woke to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window and the smell of his mother's cooking drifting up the stairs. For a moment, lying there in the warmth of his bed, he could almost pretend yesterday hadn't happened. Almost. Then he tried to sit up, and his entire body screamed in protest. His shoulders ached from the deadlifts. His hands were wrapped in bandages where the skin had torn. His legs felt like they'd been filled with concrete. Every muscle announced its presence with sharp, insistent pain. Worth it, though. He looked at Ray's patch lying on his desk where he'd left it last night, the Iron Knight's insignia catching the morning light. Worth every ache. His phone had been buzzing since dawn. Messages from everyone he'd ever met and people he hadn't. News outlets requesting interviews. A video of his speech had gone viral overnight. Someone had recorded the whole thing. And now it had 500,000 views. The comments section was a war zone of opinions, but Marcus couldn't bring himself to read them. He dressed slowly, each movement deliberate, and made his way downstairs. His mother stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 Sunday mornings. She glanced back when she heard him, and her smile was tired, but genuine. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I got hit by a truck." "Good. That means you're alive." She slid a plate across the counter toward him. Pancakes, eggs, bacon. Comfort food. Recovery food. Eat. You need protein. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that only exists between people who've survived hard things together. Finally, Angela set down her fork and looked at her son with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Your father?" she began, then stopped, started again. "After Michael died, I packed away everything. His uniform, his medals, the letters from his unit. I couldn't look at them without falling apart. But last night, after you went to bed, I took them all out." Marcus waited, sensing something important coming. "There's things about your father I never told you. Things he made me promise not to share until you were ready." She stood, walked to the counter, and returned with a worn manila envelope. "He wrote you a letter, before his last deployment, said to give it to you when you became a man. I think yesterday proved you're ready." Marcus took the envelope with trembling hands. His name was written on the front in his father's precise handwriting. The seal had never been broken. "Should I read it now?" "That's up to you, baby. But Marcus—" She touched his hand. "Whatever it says, remember he loved you more than anything in this world. More than his duty, more than his honor, more than his own life." Marcus carried the letter upstairs, sat on his bed and stared at it for a full 5 minutes before finding the courage to open it. Inside were 3 pages, handwritten, dated 2 weeks before his father died. The first paragraph made his eyes blur with tears. The second made his hands shake. By the 3rd page, Marcus understood things he'd never known about the man who'd raised him. His father hadn't just been special forces. He'd been part of an elite unit that conducted operations too sensitive for official record. The kind of missions that saved hundreds of lives but would never be acknowledged. The kind of work that required a specific type of person, someone who could move through chaos like smoke, who could make impossible decisions, who could carry the weight of taking life to preserve it. They'd called him the Ghost because he could infiltrate hostile territory without being seen, could extract civilians from war zones without a single shot fired when possible, could end threats before they materialized. He'd saved 12 hostages in Fallujah alone, had stopped 2 suicide bombers through sheer tactical brilliance and hand-to-hand combat, had carried wounded soldiers through streets filled with crossfire, refusing to leave anyone behind. But the letter wasn't about the victories. It was about the cost. Marcus, his father, had written, "By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry for that, sorrier than words can express. But I want you to understand something important about the life I chose. Being the Ghost meant being 2 people. The soldier who did what had to be done. And the father who came home and tried to be gentle, tried to be present, tried to teach you that violence is never the first answer. The hardest part wasn't the combat. It was remembering how to be human after. How to hold your mother gently when my hands had done terrible things. How to tuck you in at night when I'd just returned from darkness you should never have to know about. I tell you this, not to burden you, but to free you. You're going to face moments where you have to choose between being strong and being kind. People will tell you that you can't be both. They're wrong. True strength, the kind that matters, the kind that changes things, is choosing kindness, even when strength would be easier. It's protecting the weak, even when dominating them would be simpler. It's standing between evil and innocence, and refusing to become what you fight against. You watched me train. You learned the techniques. But son, the real lesson wasn't how to fight. It was knowing when not to fight. That's what made me the Ghost. Not my ability to hurt people, but my ability to save them without becoming a monster in the process. Be better than me, Marcus. Be the man who stands up without needing to stand over anyone. Be the leader who lifts others instead of crushing them. Be the kind of strength that heals instead of breaks. I love you more than I can ever express. I'm proud of who you are, not who I want you to be. And if you're reading this, then I hope I taught you enough. Hope I loved you enough. Hope you know that every sacrifice I made was because I believed in a world worth protecting. A world where you could grow up free and safe and strong. Don't mourn me too long. Live, love. Stand up for what's right. And remember, the greatest battles are the ones you win without fighting. Your father, Michael Marcus, read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face, understanding flooding through him like light through dark water. His father hadn't just been teaching him self-defense. He'd been teaching him a philosophy, a way of being in the world that honored strength without worshiping it. Yesterday at the factory, Marcus had lived that philosophy without even fully understanding it. He'd stood up without striking back. He'd won without fighting. He'd shown strength through restraint. He'd been the ghost's son in the way that mattered most. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. His mother's voice gentle. "Marcus, someone's here to see you." He wiped his eyes, folded the letter carefully, and went downstairs. Through the front window, he saw a familiar motorcycle parked at the curb. Ray Mercer stood on the porch, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable and small, in a way Marcus had never seen him. Marcus opened the door. "Mr. Mercer." "Kid?" Ray shifted his weight. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Marcus stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The morning sun was bright birds, singing like yesterday's violence had never happened. They stood there for a moment, neither quite sure how to start. Finally, Ray spoke. "I came to apologize. Not make excuses, just apologize." He looked at Marcus directly. "What I did yesterday, what I've been doing to you in the center, it was wrong. I was wrong. What changed your mind?" "You did." Ray's voice was rough. "I went home last night and couldn't sleep. Kept seeing you standing there, refusing to fight back even when I gave you every reason to. Kept thinking about what you said about strength that protects versus strength that destroys." He paused. "And I realized I've been the wrong kind of strong for a long time." Marcus didn't know what to say. "I did some research last night. Looked up your father." Ray met his eyes. "The ghost of Fallujah. I didn't know. If I'd known who you really were, who he was." "It wouldn't have mattered," Marcus interrupted. "My father's accomplishments aren't mine. I'm just his son." "No." Ray shook his head firmly. "You're more than that. You're his legacy. And yesterday you showed me what real leadership looks like." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This is a formal letter withdrawing any claims against the community center, and an apology to Mrs. Chen, and a promise that the Iron Knights won't bother your neighborhood again." Marcus took the envelope, surprised. "Mr. Mercer, you don't have to." "Yeah, I do. I'm tired, kid. Tired of being angry. Tired of fighting. Tired of trying to hold on to a past that's gone." Ray's expression softened slightly. "Maybe it's time I learned from someone who knows how to move forward instead of staying stuck." "I don't know that I know that," Marcus admitted. "I'm just trying to do what's right." "That's exactly what makes you a leader. You try." Ray extended his hand. "I'm not asking to be friends, but maybe we don't have to be enemies." Marcus shook his hand. Ray's grip was firm, respectful. Then the older man nodded once and walked back to his motorcycle. Before he put on his helmet, he called back, "Hey, Marcus, your old man would have been proud, just so you know." Then he was gone, engine rumbling into the distance. Marcus stood on his porch holding the envelope, feeling like the world had tilted slightly on its axis. His mother appeared beside him. "That was unexpected," she said. "Yeah." Marcus watched the street where Ray had disappeared. "Mom, can I ask you something about Dad? About what people called him?" "The ghost." She smiled sadly. "What do you want to know? Was he really? I mean, the letter says things, but was he really that good, that legendary?" Angela was quiet for a moment. "Your father was the most capable person I've ever met. In combat, in crisis, in any situation that required clear thinking and decisive action. But Marcus? He was also scared every single day. Scared he'd make the wrong choice. Scared he'd become the kind of person who saw violence as an answer instead of a last resort. That fear kept him human, kept him good." "I'm scared too," Marcus admitted. of what happens next, of whether I can live up to his example. Good. She hugged him. That fear will keep you humble, keep you questioning, keep you from becoming arrogant or cruel. Your father's greatest strength was knowing he could hurt people but choosing not to unless absolutely necessary. You showed that same strength yesterday. The rest of Sunday passed quietly. Marcus stayed home, let his body recover, avoided the internet and its opinions. But by Monday morning, returning to school felt like walking into a spotlight. People pointed, whispered. Some smiled and nodded. Others looked away or glared. His viral video had made him a symbol, and symbols were never simple. To some, he was a hero standing up against bigotry and intimidation. To others, he was a troublemaker who'd embarrassed a local business owner and his crew. Devin met him at his locker with a grin. Dude, you're famous. Like actually famous. ESPN tweeted about you. ESPN? Great, Marcus muttered. Just what I wanted. Come on, man. Enjoy it a little. You earned this. But Marcus didn't want fame. He wanted normalcy. Wanted to go back to being just a student who volunteered at a community center. Wanted the weight of expectation to lift from his shoulders. His first class was American history with Mr. Henderson, a black man in his 50s who'd taught at Riverdale High for 20 years. When Marcus walked in, Mr. Henderson was writing on the board, "What makes a leader?" The universe had a sense of humor, apparently. Class started with Mr. Henderson turning to face them, his expression thoughtful. I imagine most of you saw what happened this weekend at the old factory. Some of you were probably there. He looked directly at Marcus. And I think it's worth discussing. Not to embarrass anyone, but because it raises important questions about leadership, conflict, and community. Marcus felt every eye turned toward him. He wanted to sink into his chair and disappear. Marcus, Mr. Henderson said gently, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I do want to use Saturday as a teaching moment if that's okay with you. What could Marcus say? He nodded. Leadership, Mr. Henderson continued, has been defined 1,000 different ways by 1,000 different thinkers. Some say it's about power. Others say it's about service. Some say leaders are born. Others say they're made. He paused. But I think what we saw Saturday was something special. We saw someone choose restraint in a moment when violence would have been justified. Choose dialogue when force was expected. Choose protection over domination. A student raised their hand. Sarah Chen, Mrs. Chen's granddaughter. But Mr. Henderson didn't. Marcus lose 2 of the 3 challenges. How is that leadership? Excellent question. Mr. Henderson smiled. Let me answer with another question. Who do you think people will remember in 10 years? The person who lifted more weight or the person who changed how we think about strength? The class fell silent, processing. Real leadership, Mr. Henderson continued, isn't about winning every contest. It's about winning the battles that matter. And the battle for a community's soul, for its values, for what it stands for, that's the kind of battle worth fighting. After class, Mr. Henderson asked Marcus to stay for a moment. When the room emptied, he came around his desk and sat on the edge of it, studying Marcus with kind eyes. Your father and I served together, he said. Briefly. Different units, but we crossed paths in Iraq. Did you know that? Marcus shook his head, stunned. Michael Washington was a legend even then. The way he moved through impossible situations, always finding the path that preserved the most life, always choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. Mr. Henderson's voice was warm with memory. But you know what I remember most? One day between missions we were sitting in a mess tent, and someone asked him how he stayed sane, how he kept his humanity in the middle of all that death and chaos. What did he say? He said, I remember why I'm here. Not to destroy, to protect. And I remember that every enemy was once someone's son, someone's brother. I don't fight people. I fight the circumstances that made this necessary. Mr. Henderson looked at Marcus carefully. I saw that same philosophy in action Saturday. You didn't fight Ray Mercer the man. You fought the cycle of violence and intimidation. And you won. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I was just trying not to make things worse. Exactly, and that's wisdom beyond your years. Mr. Henderson stood. Marcus, you're going to face more challenges. Fame is fickle, and people have short memories for good deeds, but long memories for perceived slights. But I want you to remember something: your father's greatest legacy isn't what he did in combat. It's who he raised. It's you. The words followed Marcus through the rest of the day, through classes where teachers referenced Saturday, through lunch, where students asked for selfies or advice, or just wanted to touch the person who'd become a symbol. By the time school ended, Marcus felt exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical pain. He headed to the community center, craving the familiar routine of helping kids with homework, of being useful in small, concrete ways. But when he arrived, he found something he hadn't expected. A line of people stretched from the front door halfway around the building. Families, teenagers, adults. Even a few people in Iron Knight's colors who looked uncomfortable but determined. Mrs. Chen stood at the door checking people in with a clipboard, looking simultaneously thrilled and overwhelmed. When she saw Marcus, her face lit up. Marcus, look at this. We've had over 100 new registration requests since Saturday. People want to volunteer to enroll their kids to get involved. We've never seen anything like it. Marcus looked at the line, at the diverse faces, white, black, Latino, Asian, all ages, all backgrounds. Whatever seeds had been planted Saturday were growing faster than he'd imagined. Do you need help? He asked. Always. Mrs. Chen handed him a stack of forms. But Marcus, take a moment first. See what you've done. See what's possible when someone stands up. He worked the rest of the afternoon registering new members, answering questions, giving tours. And with each person he met, each story he heard about why they'd come, Marcus understood something profound. Leadership wasn't a destination. It was a daily practice, a series of small choices that accumulated into change. A white woman in her 40s approached him near closing time. Are you Marcus Jackson? Yes, ma'am. I'm Jennifer Mercer, Ray's sister. She extended her hand, and Marcus shook it cautiously. I wanted to thank you for what you did Saturday. Not just standing up to Ray, but for showing him another way. He called me last night. First time he's called in 2 years. Said he needed to talk about changing, about becoming better. That never would have happened without you. Marcus didn't know what to say. I just did what felt right. Exactly. And sometimes that's all it takes to shift someone's perspective. She smiled. Anyway, I'm signing up my daughter for the tutoring program. Figure if you're involved here, it must be a good place. As she walked away, Marcus felt the weight of his father's letter in his pocket. He'd been carrying it all day like a talisman. The words echoed in his mind. The greatest battles are the ones you win without fighting. That evening, after the center closed, Marcus walked home through the fading light. The streets of Riverdale looked different somehow, softer, more hopeful. Like the town itself was taking a deep breath after holding it for too long. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: VFW meeting Wednesday 7 p.m. Come if you can. Would mean a lot. Jerome Williams. Another text, this one from Devon basketball game Friday. You playing, or you too famous now? And one more from a number he recognized. Thank you for the second chance. Working on earning it. Ray. Marcus smiled, typed quick responses, and kept walking. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that reminded him of the evening his father had taught him to ride a bike, of the morning they'd gone fishing, of 1,000 small moments that had shaped who he was. At home, his mother had dinner waiting. They ate together, talking about ordinary things: her shift at the hospital, his homework, whether they needed to buy milk. The mundane conversations that made life worth living. After dinner, Marcus went to his father's study. He placed Ray's patch on the shelf next to his father's medals. Two symbols of strength of leadership, of paths chosen and changed. He opened his father's training journal to a blank page near the end and picked up a pen. For a moment he just held it, thinking about legacy, about what it meant to inherit not just skills, but values. Then he began to write. My name is Marcus Jackson. I'm 16 years old. I'm the son of Michael Washington, the ghost of Fallujah. And today I learned that being his son isn't about fighting the way he fought. It's about protecting the way he protected. About standing up the way he stood up. I don't know what comes next. Don't know if I'll face more challenges like Saturday. Don't know if I'm strong enough or wise enough for what people seem to expect from me now. But I know this, a real leader protects people. Not just the people who are easy to protect. Not just the people who look like you or think like you. All people. Even those who don't deserve it. Especially those who don't deserve it. Dad, if you can see this somehow, if ghosts can read the words of their sons, I want you to know I understand now. I understand why you fought, why you sacrificed, why you chose to be a shield instead of a sword. And I promise to carry that forward. To be the kind of strength that heals. To stand between fear and hope. To protect what matters without becoming what I fight against. You taught me well, Dad. Now, I just have to live it. Marcus closed the journal and sat in the quiet study surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of a man he'd never stopped missing, but was finally beginning to truly understand. Outside his window, Riverdale settled into night. Lights flickered on in houses up and down the street. Families gathering. Lives continuing. A community slowly, carefully stitching itself back together after years of being torn apart by fear and anger and the weight of old grudges. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The viral video meant attention, some good, some bad, all complicated. His community would need help navigating the changes Saturday had started. The center would need volunteers to manage its sudden growth. And Ray Mercer would need support as he tried to become someone different than he'd been. But tonight, Marcus let himself rest. Let himself be 16. Let himself sit in his father's chair and feel the presence of a man who'd shown him that the strongest warriors were the ones who fought for peace, not victory. The ghost of Fallujah had taught his son well. And now, in the quiet aftermath of standing up without tearing down in the gentle space between conflict and resolution, Marcus Jackson understood what legacy really meant. It wasn't about being your father. It was about honoring what your father stood for while becoming yourself. It was about taking the lessons of the past and using them to build a different future. It was about knowing that real strength, the kind that echoed through generations, that changed communities, that planted seeds of hope in broken ground, came not from dominance, but from the courage to protect without destroying. Marcus turned off the light in his father's study and headed to his room. Tomorrow, he'd continue the work. Tomorrow, he'd show up at the center, help kids with homework, navigate the complexity of sudden recognition, and keep planting seeds of change. But tonight, he'd earned the right to simply be a boy who'd done something brave, who'd stood for something that mattered, who'd shown a town that strength and kindness weren't opposites. They were partners in the hard work of building something worth protecting. And somewhere, in whatever place brave souls went after their battles ended, Marcus liked to think his father was smiling proud, not of what his son had accomplished, but of who his son was becoming. A leader who lifted others, a warrior who chose peace, a ghost son who'd learned that the greatest victory was the battle you didn't have to fight. And that was enough. 3 weeks passed, like water finding new paths through old stones. October arrived with cooler air and leaves beginning their slow turn toward gold and crimson. Riverdale moved forward the way towns do after watershed moments. Some people changed, others resisted. Most fell somewhere in the uncertain middle. The community center's transformation was the most visible change. What had been struggling to serve 50 kids now accommodated over 200. The computer lab ran classes morning to night. The gymnasium hosted basketball leagues for 3 different age groups. Misses, Chen had to hire 2 additional staff members just to manage the growth, and the waiting list for tutoring kept getting longer. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, though he'd never asked for that position. He still came every Tuesday and Thursday to tutor, but now people stopped him constantly for advice, for photos, to share their stories of standing up to their own versions of Ray Mercer. Some days it felt like being slowly crushed under the weight of other people's expectations. "You okay?" Devin asked one afternoon as they walked out of school together. "You've been quiet all week." Marcus shifted his backpack, feeling the familiar ache in his shoulders that never quite went away after the deadlift challenge. "Just tired, I guess." "You're doing too much, man. Between school, the center, all those interview requests, when do you sleep?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You look exhausted." Devin stopped walking, made Marcus face him. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" Marcus looked at his best friend and felt something crack open inside him. "I don't know how to do this, Dev. People look at me like I'm supposed to have answers, like I'm some kind of hero. But I'm just a kid who got lucky. I don't know how to be what they need me to be. So stop trying to be what they need. Just be you." "What if that's not enough?" Devin's expression softened. "Marcus, you stood up to Ray Mercer without throwing a single punch. You gave a speech that made grown men cry. You changed this whole town's conversation about what strength means. If that's not enough, then nothing ever will be." They walked in silence for a while, past the shuttered gas station, past the church, where Miss Dorothy was already setting up for Wednesday night services, past houses Marcus had known his entire life. "You hear about Ray?" Devin asked quietly. Marcus had heard. Everyone had heard. Ray Mercer had closed the Iron Knights clubhouse 2 weeks ago, citing personal reasons. Some of his crew had left town. Others had stayed but distanced themselves from the club's more aggressive activities. Ray himself had seemingly vanished. No one had seen him since that Sunday morning when he'd come to apologize. "I heard," Marcus said. "Mrs. Patterson says he's staying with his sister in Monroe." "Think he's really changing or just hiding?" "I don't know. Hope it's the first one." They reached Marcus's street, and Devin bumped his shoulder. "Friday night, basketball game. You meet Terrell James. No pressure, no expectations. Just playing ball like normal teenagers. You in?" Marcus smiled, the first real smile he'd managed in days. "Yeah, I'm in." Wednesday evening found Marcus at the VFW post for the second time since Jerome Williams had invited him. The building was small, tucked behind the elementary school. Just a single room with folding chairs, faded flags on the walls, and a bulletin board covered in photos of men and women in uniform. Some of the photos were recent soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan. Others were older, yellowed with age, showing young men from Vietnam, Korea, World War II. His father's photo hung in the place of honor center of the board. Michael Washington in his dress uniform, the silver star visible on his chest. His expression serious but kind. Underneath a plaque read, "SSG Michael J. Washington, the Ghost of Fallujah, a warrior who chose peace." Marcus stood before it, as he had the past 2 Wednesday evenings, trying to reconcile the legend with the man he remembered. His father tucking him in at night. His father teaching him to tie his shoes. His father laughing at dinner. The ordinary moments that made someone real, not mythic. "He hated that photo," Jerome said, appearing beside Marcus with 2 cups of coffee. "Said it made him look too serious. But it's the only one we could find in uniform where he wasn't actively scowling at the camera." Marcus accepted the coffee gratefully. "Thanks for inviting me here. It helps hearing stories about him. That's what this place is for. Memory, community, making sure the people we lost aren't forgotten." Jerome gestured to the chairs arranged in a circle. "Come on, meeting's about to start." The VFW meetings weren't what Marcus had expected. No formal ceremonies or military protocol. Just 12 veterans ranging from their 40s to their 80s gathering to check on each other, share struggles, offer support. They talked about nightmares and medications, about finding work and dealing with physical pain, about the challenge of being home when part of you never left the war behind. Marcus mostly listened, learning more about trauma and resilience in these 2 hours than he'd learned in 16 years. These men had seen things done. Things survive things that would break most people. But they were still here, still showing up, still trying to be good fathers and husbands and neighbors, despite carrying weight most people couldn't imagine. "Marcus," Jerome said toward the end of the meeting, "you've been coming for a few weeks now. Want to share anything?" No pressure, but this is a safe space. Marcus hesitated, then found himself speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be my father's son. Everyone knows who he was, the ghost, the hero. But I didn't know any of that until recently. To me, he was just Dad. The guy who made terrible pancakes and always let me stay up late on Fridays." Several veterans nodded, understanding in their eyes. "And now people expect me to be like him, to have his courage, his strength, his answers. But I don't. I'm just 16. I'm just trying to figure out how to pass algebra, and whether I should ask Sarah Chen to homecoming, and how to help kids at the center without completely falling apart from exhaustion." His voice cracked. "I don't know how to be what everyone needs." Jerome leaned forward. "Your daddy ever tell you about the worst day of his life?" Marcus shook his head. "It was in Fallujah. His unit got pinned down, heavy fire casualties mounting. The ghost was supposed to have all the answers, supposed to know the perfect tactical move, but he didn't. He was terrified, overwhelmed, certain everyone was going to die because he couldn't figure out what to do." "What happened?" "He admitted it. Told his sergeant, 'I don't know what to do. I need help.' And his sergeant, tough old bastard named Rodriguez, he said, 'Good. Now we can actually work together instead of waiting for you to be Superman.'" Jerome smiled. "They figured it out as a team. Saved 11 lives that day. And afterward, your father told me that was the moment he really became a leader. Not when he had all the answers, but when he was brave enough to admit he didn't." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. "So it's okay that I don't know what I'm doing." "It's more than okay. It's human. Your father was the ghost because he accepted his limitations and worked within them. He didn't try to be invincible. He tried to be effective. Big difference." Jerome stood, put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You're not supposed to be Michael Washington Marcus. You're supposed to be Marcus Jackson. And from what I've seen, that's more than enough." The meeting ended with handshakes and plans for the next gathering. As Marcus left, a younger veteran, maybe 30 with burn scars on his arms, caught up with him in the parking lot. "Hey Marcus, I'm David Chen, Sarah's uncle." Marcus recognized the name. "Mrs. Chen's son. Nephew. But yeah, family." David smiled. "I just wanted to say thanks for what you did at the factory. My mom told me the whole story, showed me the video. You know what you did there? Made a fool of myself trying to deadlift." David laughed. "No man. You showed a whole generation of kids that you don't have to fight to be strong. That restraint is powerful. That protecting people matters more than dominating them." He paused. "I came home from Afghanistan 3 years ago. Been struggling with PTSD, anger issues, feeling like I had to prove something to everyone. But watching you stand there, refusing to hit back, choosing peace, it helped me understand what my therapist has been trying to tell me for years. Real strength is internal, not external." Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd never thought about his actions affecting veterans, people who'd actually fought in wars. "Anyway," David continued, "I wanted you to know. Your father's legacy isn't just what he did over there. It's what he taught you. And now you're teaching the rest of us." He extended his hand. "If you ever need anything, you got family in the Chen clan. We take care of our own." Marcus shook his hand, throat tight with emotion. "Thank you. That means a lot." Driving home, Marcus thought about legacy, about how the ripples of one person's choices could spread further than they'd ever know. His father had touched hundreds of lives, and now Marcus was touching lives too, not through military service or heroic combat, but through the simple act of standing up without tearing down. Friday night's basketball game was exactly what Marcus needed: pure, uncomplicated fun. Just him and his friends playing ball under the lights at the community center's outdoor court, the one with the chain net that hung crooked because someone had dunked too hard last summer. They played 3-on-3, Devin and Marcus and Terrell against James and 2 guys from the football team. The game was competitive, but loose, full of trash talk and laughter, and the easy camaraderie of teenagers being teenagers. "That's game," Devin shouted, hitting a 3-pointer that gave their team the win. 21-19. Pay up, James. Pay up. We didn't bet anything. Then pay and respect. Acknowledge my greatness. They collapsed on the grass, breathing hard, passing around water bottles. The October night was cool, but not cold stars visible despite the light pollution from town. "This is nice," Marcus said. "Just playing, no pressure." "You've been carrying too much weight, man," Terrell said. "You're allowed to be a kid sometimes." "I know, I'm trying." James sat up. "Can I ask you something about the factory? When Ray was swinging at you, weren't you scared he'd actually connect? One lucky punch could have ended you." Marcus thought about it. "Yeah, I was scared, but I was more scared of becoming like him, of letting anger turn me into someone who hurts people because I can. My dad always said the hardest part of being strong isn't using that strength, it's choosing not to use it." "Your dad sounds like he was something special," James said quietly. "He was. Still is, I guess. In here." Marcus tapped his chest. "Everything he taught me, every value he lived by, it's still here, still guiding me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars, breathing the cool air, just being young for a moment before the weight of the world came back. The sound of a motorcycle broke the stillness. They all tensed, sat up, watched as a single bike pulled into the parking lot. Ray Mercer cut the engine, removed his helmet, and stood there like a man at a crossroads. "Stay here," Marcus said to his friends. "Marcus?" "It's okay." He stood, walked toward Ray with slow, measured steps. They met halfway between the court and the parking lot in that liminal space where neither had home field advantage. "Mr. Mercer," Marcus said. "Didn't expect to see you." Ray looked different. Thinner, maybe. Or just worn down in a way that had nothing to do with physical weight. "Been staying with my sister in Monroe. Doing some thinking. Some therapy, actually." He said the last word like it cost him something to admit. "That's good. Therapy's good." "Yeah. Turns out carrying around 40 years of anger isn't healthy. Who knew?" Ray's attempt at humor fell flat. He cleared his throat. "I came by because I heard the center's basketball hoop is broken. The indoor one. Needs the whole backboard replaced." "Yeah, it broke last week. Some kids were hanging on the rim." "I could fix it. I've got the tools, the know-how. Used to do construction before." He gestured vaguely. "Before everything." Marcus studied him. "Why? Why fix it? Because kids need a place to play." "No. Why really?" Ray met his eyes. "Because I need to do something that builds instead of tears down. Because I've spent 3 weeks thinking about who I've been and who I want to be, and the distance between those two people is pretty damn far. And because you showed me something at that factory, you showed me that strength doesn't have to hurt people. So I'm trying to learn that. Trying to be different." Marcus thought about it. About second chances and redemption. About how his father had always believed people could change if they chose to. "Okay," he said. "Come by tomorrow morning. Mrs. Chen will be there. We can use the help." Ray's expression shifted: relief, gratitude, something that looked almost like hope. "Thank you, Marcus. You didn't have to give me this chance." "I know, but that's what this place is about. Giving people chances." Marcus paused. "Mr. Mercer, I can't promise everyone's going to be okay with you being here. Some people might be angry or scared or... I know, I deserve that. I'll earn their trust back. Or I won't. Either way, I'm going to try." Ray put his helmet back on, mounted his bike, Before starting the engine, he called out, "Your friends can relax, by the way. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just wanted to make an offer." Marcus turned, saw Devon Terrell and James standing now ready to back him up if needed. He waved them over. "Mr. Mercer's going to help fix the basketball hoop tomorrow," Marcus explained. "You sure that's a good idea?" Devon asked quietly. "No," Marcus admitted. "But good ideas don't always look like good ideas at first. Sometimes you have to take a chance on people changing." Saturday morning arrived, bright and cool, leaves falling in lazy spirals from the trees around the community center. Marcus arrived early to find Ray already there unloading tools from his truck, a new backboard, fresh rim bolts and brackets. Mrs. Chen stood on the front steps, arms crossed, watching Ray with the kind of skepticism earned through years of disappointment. "Mrs. Chen," Marcus said, joining her. "He wants to help." "People want many things. Following through is different." "I know. But don't we have to let people try?" She looked at him with those sharp, assessing eyes. "You are young and optimistic. I am old and have been disappointed many times. But," she sighed, "your father would have given him a chance, so I will too. But Marcus, I'm trusting your judgment here. If this goes wrong..." "It's on me, I know." Ray worked through the morning with quiet efficiency, removing the broken backboard, installing the new one, making sure every bolt was tight, every connection secure. A few people stopped to watch, some curious, some hostile, all wary. Around noon, Jamal showed up for his Saturday tutoring session. He saw Ray and froze. "That's the bad man," he whispered to Marcus. "From before." Marcus knelt down. "He was. But he's trying to be better now. People can change, Jamal. People can learn and grow and become different than they were." "Like caterpillars becoming butterflies." Marcus smiled. "Exactly like that." Jamal considered this with the seriousness only 8-year-olds could muster. Then he walked over to Ray. "You're fixing the hoop." Ray looked down, clearly uncomfortable. "Yeah, kid. Trying to." "Good. It's been broken for a week. We need it for practice." Jamal paused. "Thank you." Ray's hands stilled on his wrench. "You're welcome." By mid-afternoon, the hoop was fixed. Ray tested it himself, making sure it could handle the weight of kids hanging on it, ensuring it was safe. Then he packed his tools, preparing to leave. "Mr. Mercer," Mrs. Chen called from the doorway. "We have lunch for volunteers. Would you like to stay?" Ray looked shocked. You don't have to." "I know. I'm offering anyway. Your choice." Ray glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragement. "Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Chen." They ate at the long table in the community room, Ray, Marcus, Mrs. Chen, and a handful of volunteers. The conversation was stilted at first, but gradually warmed. Ray talked about his construction days, about building houses all over Louisiana, about the satisfaction of creating something that would last. "That's what I miss most," he admitted. "Building things. Somewhere along the way I stopped creating and started, I don't know, destroying maybe, or just existing angry." Miss Dorothy, who'd arrived for her afternoon shift, set her fork down. "Ray Mercer, I've known you since you were 16 years old and got caught stealing from the hardware store. You've always had anger in you, but you've also had potential. Question is, which one you gonna feed?" "Trying to feed the right one now, Miss Dorothy." "Good. 'Bout time." She stood, patted his shoulder. "But I'm watching you. We all are. You mess up, you answer to this community. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." After lunch, as Ray prepared to leave, he pulled Marcus aside. "I know this doesn't fix everything. No, I've got a long way to go. But thank you for giving me a place to start." "Don't thank me. Just keep showing up. That's what matters." Ray left, and Marcus watched him go, thinking about redemption, about how it wasn't a single moment, but a series of choices day after day to be better than you were. The weeks that followed established a rhythm. Ray came every Saturday to help with maintenance around the center. Small things at first, fixing a leaky faucet, patching holes in drywall, replacing burned-out lights. The community watched, waited, tested his commitment. Slowly, grudgingly, some people started to soften. Not everyone. Some of the Iron Knight's former victims couldn't bring themselves to forgive, and Marcus understood that. Forgiveness wasn't mandatory, but coexistence was possible, and that was enough for now. Marcus continued his tutoring, his schoolwork, his attempts to balance being a leader with being 16. Some days were easier than others. He learned to say no sometimes, to recognize his own limits, to ask for help when he needed it. Sarah Chen finally worked up the courage to ask him to homecoming, which made Devin laugh for a solid 5 minutes. "Dude, she asked you, that's amazing." "Is it?" I was supposed to ask her. "Who cares who asked who? You're going to homecoming with Sarah Chen. That's a win." Marcus went to homecoming and danced awkwardly and laughed with his friends, and for one night got to just be a teenager at a school dance, not a symbol or a leader or a hero. Just Marcus having fun, making memories, living the life his father had fought to protect. November arrived with the first real cold snap frost on the grass and the morning's breath visible in the air. The community center hosted its Thanksgiving dinner, a tradition Mrs. Chen had started 5 years ago, feeding anyone who needed a meal, no questions asked. Marcus helped serve food alongside Devin, Terrell, and James. They handed out plates of turkey and dressing, mashed potatoes, and gravy, watching as the line stretched out the door. Families, elderly folks living alone, homeless individuals, veterans, everyone welcome. And there, near the end of the line, stood Ray Mercer with 3 of his former crew members. Marcus caught Mrs. Chen's eye. She gave a small nod. Permission granted. "Mr. Mercer," Marcus said as Ray reached the serving line. "Happy Thanksgiving." "Happy Thanksgiving, Marcus." Ray accepted his plate. "Mind if we sit?" "Course not. That's what this is for. Community." They sat at the long tables, former enemies breaking bread together, not as friends exactly, but as neighbors learning to share space. Ray's crew looked uncomfortable, but they stayed, and that mattered. After the meal, as Marcus helped with cleanup, Jerome Williams appeared with several other veterans. "Marcus got a minute." They gathered in the community room and Jerome held up a folded flag. "Your father's unit put this together. We've been holding on to it, waiting for the right time. This is for you." He unfolded it, a commemorative flag with Michael Washington's name embroidered on it, along with his unit designation, and the words, "The Ghost of Fallujah, a warrior who chose peace. His legacy lives on." Marcus's vision blurred. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just accept it. Accept that your father's legacy isn't just his service. It's you. The way you stood up at that factory. The way you've led this community. The way you've shown people, especially Ray and his crew, that strength can heal instead of hurt." Jerome's voice was thick with emotion. "Michael would be so damn proud of you, son. We all are." Marcus hugged the flag close, feeling the weight of legacy, of love, of a father's enduring presence in his life. The veterans stood with him, a wall of support, a community of people who understood sacrifice and service, and the long road home. That evening, after the center closed, after the last dish was washed and the last table folded, Marcus stood in the gymnasium, looking at the repaired basketball hoop. Ray had done good work. It was solid level, perfect. The door opened, and his mother entered with 2 cups of hot chocolate. "Thought you might be here," she said, handing him one. "Thanks, Mom." He sipped, grateful for the warmth. "You know what I've been thinking about?" "What's that baby in Dad's letter?" The part where he talked about being 2 people, the soldier who did what had to be done, and the father who came home and tried to be gentle. Marcus looked at the hoop at the court where kids would play tomorrow. "I think I understand now what he meant. It's not about being 2 different people. It's about being whole. About having the strength to fight, but choosing the strength to protect. About knowing you could hurt someone, but choosing not to, unless absolutely necessary." Angela set her cup down, took his hand. You've learned that lesson better than most people twice your age. Your father learned it through war. You learned it through choosing peace. I think... She smiled, tears in her eyes. I think your way might be better. I had a good teacher. You had too. She squeezed his hand. Your father taught you strength, but I've been teaching you too. Compassion, patience, the importance of rest and self-care. You're not just your father's son, Marcus. You're mine too, and that matters. Marcus hugged her, feeling the truth of it. He was a combination of both parents, his father's warrior spirit tempered by his mother's nurturing heart. That balance was what made him Marcus, not just a ghost's shadow. The next morning, Sunday, dawned bright and unseasonably warm. Marcus woke to his phone buzzing with messages. The center was hosting a pickup basketball game, open invitation, all ages, all skill levels. When he arrived, he found the outdoor court packed. Kids, teenagers, adults, all mixed together. And there, helping referee a game between 8-year-olds, was Ray Mercer. You came back, Marcus said, approaching. Ray smiled, a real smile, not the threatening grin from before. Figured someone needed to make sure these kids don't kill each other over a basketball game. You know how competitive 8-year-olds are. Marcus laughed. Yeah, I do. They stood together watching Jamal make a layup and celebrate like he'd won the championship. Other kids cheered, high-fived, kept playing with the unself-conscious joy that only children possessed. You know what I realized, Ray said quietly. That day at the factory, when I was swinging at you, and you kept dodging, I wasn't fighting you, I was fighting myself, fighting the person I'd become, and you. He looked at Marcus. You refused to be my enemy. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. I was terrified. I know. That's what made it brave. Ray watched the kids play for a moment. I've been going to therapy, like I said, learning about anger, about trauma, about how hurt people, and I'm trying to break that cycle. Trying to be the kind of person who builds instead of tears down. How's that going? Some days better than others. But I keep showing up, keep trying. Figure that's all any of us can do. Marcus nodded. That's all any of us can do. The game continued, laughter rising like music. Marcus joined in, eventually playing on a team with Jamal and Devin, and James competing against Terrell and some younger kids. The score didn't matter. The winning didn't matter. What mattered was the joy, the connection, the simple act of playing together. As the sun reached its zenith, as the day warmed and the game went on, Marcus looked around at the scene, at the repaired basketball hoop, at the mixed crowd of players, at Ray, helping a kid tie his shoes, at Mrs. Chen, watching from the doorway with pride in her eyes, at his mother sitting on a bench with Miss Dorothy, at the veterans who'd stopped by to watch, at the community that had been broken and was slowly, carefully knitting itself back together. This was healing. Not the dramatic kind from movies where everything fixed itself overnight. But the real kind, the hard kind, the kind that required patience and forgiveness, and the daily choice to keep trying, keep building, keep moving forward together. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. You're missing a great game at the park. Coming. He smiled, typed back. On my way soon. Save me a spot. Another text, this one from the VFW meeting Wednesday. Bring your basketball friends if they want. All welcome. And one more from a number that made his breath catch, his father's old phone, which his mother had kept active. Proud of you, son. Mom. But Dad would say the same. Marcus looked up at the sky, at the brilliant blue, unmarred by clouds, and felt his father's presence, not as an absence, but as a foundation. Everything Michael Washington had taught him, every value he'd embodied, every sacrifice he'd made, it lived on in this moment, in this community, in these kids playing basketball on a Sunday morning. The ghost had taught his son well, and now that son was teaching others. The cycle continued, generation to generation, each learning from the last, each building on the foundation laid before. Devon called out, "Marcus, you playing or what?" Marcus pocketed his phone, jogged toward the court. "I'm playing." He took the ball, dribbled past to Jamal, watched the kid make another shot. The crowd cheered. Ray high-fived Jamal. Mrs. Chen brought out lemonade. Marcus's mother laughed at something Miss Dorothy said. The sun shone warm on everyone, making no distinction between who had been enemies and who had been friends. In that moment, Marcus understood something profound. True strength wasn't about power. It wasn't about dominating others or proving superiority. True strength was this: a community choosing to heal together, people choosing to forgive and rebuild, a 16-year-old boy choosing to lead with compassion instead of force. True strength was protecting what mattered without becoming what you fought against. His father had lived that truth through military service, through sacrifice on foreign soil, through standing between innocence and evil in the hardest places on earth. Marcus was living it here in Riverdale, through tutoring kids and standing up to bullies and offering second chances to people who maybe didn't deserve them but needed them anyway. Different battlefields. Same war. The eternal struggle between fear and hope, between breaking and building, between the strength that destroys and the strength that protects. As the game continued, as the November sun warmed the court and laughter filled the air, Marcus caught Ray's eye across the court. The older man nodded once, acknowledgement, respect, gratitude. Marcus nodded back. They weren't friends. Maybe they never would be. But they were both trying to be better, both learning that the hardest battles were the ones fought within yourself, both discovering that real victory looked nothing like domination and everything like this: kids playing, communities, healing, people growing. The ghost of Fallujah had taught his son that a warrior's greatest victory is the battle he doesn't fight. Marcus Jackson was teaching Riverdale that a leader's greatest strength is knowing when to stand up and when to step back, when to fight and when to forgive, when to be strong, and when to let strength serve something larger than itself. The game ended with no clear winner, and nobody cared. They'd play again next week, and the week after, and the season after. The center would keep growing, keep serving, keep offering hope to anyone who walked through its doors. Ray would keep showing up, keep proving through action that people could change. Marcus would keep balancing the weight of legacy with the lightness of youth. Keep figuring out how to honor his father while becoming himself. And somewhere in whatever place, brave souls rested after their battles ended. Michael Washington watched his son play basketball on a sunny November morning and smiled, proud not of what his son had accomplished, but of who his son was becoming. A leader who lifted others. A warrior who chose peace. A 16-year-old boy who'd learned that true strength protects people, even those who don't deserve it, without becoming what you fight against. The basketball bounced, echoing through the morning air. Children laughed. A community healed. And Marcus Jackson, son of the ghost, understood finally that his father's greatest legacy wasn't what he'd done in war. It was this: teaching his son that real power comes from knowing when not to use it, that real leadership means making everyone stronger, and that the battles worth winning are the ones fought not with fists, but with the courageous choice to protect, to forgive, to build, to hope. That was strength. That was honor. That was enough.